Hey everyone, we are back. Welcome to GameFace, episode 271 on Sifted Games at sifted.net, our weekly whip around the gaming industry. Alongside me today to share with you the biggest stories and games from the week is Matthew Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Oh, not much.
Good to see you again, brother.
Yeah, been a while. I hope I remember how to talk about video games.
Yeah, like doing the show intro right there. I had to really stop for a second and like make sure I had everything locked down, and I nailed it though. I think it went okay. It is good to be back. It's been, 2 weeks since we did an episode. We thought we might be able to slide one in last week, but Matt's been crazy busy. You're working on a bunch of stuff for your films, right?
Mm-hmm. So finally again.
How's that going?
Getting there. We're done with one of them. We got one more to go. There will probably be... it's time to submit to film festivals and do all that stuff. So hopefully next year there will be some news on that. Maybe people can go see them depending on where they are. But at the very least, it'll be time to social media the hell out of them. So,
what is the plan for the films?
To take them around the festival circuit and use them to get more work and more money to make more films and larger films, not using my own money this time.
What's the length of the films right now? Do you know what the runtime is?
They're both a little under 10 minutes.
Okay. So they're shorties.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of film festivals out there to kind of get them some run.
Tons
and
of them. Yeah.
Get them
almost
some
every major, we're already submitting to Slam Dance and Sundance and the big, probably do Toronto, Portland, all the big ones. It's cheap to submit. Once you got the digital copy, you can, there's no reason, nothing holding you back as long as the film is, something that they might be interested in. And the two films we made are two very different films, so they give us even, if one isn't appropriate for one festival, the other one probably will be. So gives us a lot of entry points.
And everyone, once Matt is ready to start promoting this stuff, it would be great if our community could rally around what he's been doing. And obviously, I'll be tweeting that stuff out. Matt will be tweeting that stuff out. Follow him at mkyle, by the way. Mm-hmm. And once we do that, if you guys could all retweet it and share it and stuff like that, it can make a huge difference for him. This is a big dream for him that he's been working on for a long time, and we'd love to see it come off as positive and bountiful as possible. So keep an eye out for that stuff. Probably not till
next year.
Next year. Yeah.
Festivals aren't really back yet.
Nothing's really quite back yet. Yeah.
Yeah, but
although I was on the East Coast, and you would think that it all is, because it's a different world out there.
Yeah, I was at Disneyland last week, and it was more crowded than I've seen it since the reopening.
But people were wearing masks, right?
Mostly, yeah. It's like the rule there is like you have to have masks inside and not outside necessarily. A lot of people are still wearing them outside. Mm-hmm. I was, but most of the time, especially in the crowds. But it's sort of, they do enforce it. Once you get inside, there's always people standing there saying like, they'll stop the line or stop the ride and like announce over the PA system like, put your mask on over your nose, you idiot, kind of thing. So, because that is a problem, like people with the dick noses hanging out. It's all right. It was the first time I've been there. I've been there like I think 5 times since the reopening. And it's the first time I felt a little uncomfortable. Yeah. In that regard, it was like every other time I felt like everybody was doing their part and they were. It just felt a little chaotic this time.
Yep. On the East Coast, it's. The town that I'm in is a little town called Carlisle, PA, basically smack dab in the center of Pennsylvania, halfway between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, just south of the capital, Harrisburg. And you would never even know there was a pandemic there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's nobody wearing masks. And I'll say this, like the numbers there are really low. Like in the county that my mom lives in, there were like 3 cases or whatever. So it is pretty safe. But it was interesting kind of going from here where everyone's still wearing masks to going there where nobody was. Like I went into a grocery store and I was one of 2 people wearing masks in the store. So it's actually kind of good to see. But like the bars there, for instance, just like packed, no one wearing masks. It was different, to say the least. But I think it was good, too. I think we all need, especially people who are living in California, where our numbers have been terrible, and now we're actually crushing it. Like, we're doing really good. But we're just so used to having this lifestyle now for the last couple of years. To go back there, it was refreshing in a lot of ways. But you're right. You feel a little uneasy when you get around it at first. But it was good to get away. I didn't do really anything. Like I literally didn't do anything other than like every day I had like a little bit of work I had to do to get episodes up. And my mom has DSL. I don't know if Mama Sifted is watching today, but hey, Mom. Her
Can she watch this on DSL? I don't.
I don't know. I don't know how she does, dude. It is
just a vague pixel blob that sounds like her son.
It was the biggest problem was that it wasn't even that it was slow, which it is. But I had already like uploaded stuff before I left, so all I had to do was just go in and like type in descriptions and set up monetization. And because it kept going up and down, it took me like 2 hours to do stuff that would take like 10 minutes. I don't know how she does it. I tried to convince her to upgrade to cable internet. She would not do it. It's like $10 more a month. And she's like, I'm on a budget. I'm retired. I'm like, oh, man. So anyway, it was good to get away. I did not play any games the whole time I was gone. None. Zero. Really disengaged from the industry as well. Wasn't on Twitter. Wasn't on social media. I just really kicked it in my mom's lounge chair for like 7 days and hung out with my wife, who also is from that area, and her family. Hung out with some old friends. Did a fantasy draft. And the people in my fantasy draft, they were aggro. Like, it almost didn't happen because people were nervous because it's in Philadelphia where the numbers are a little worse. And they all have kids and stuff. And so, like, at first the draft wasn't going to happen, which was a big reason why I went home. And then we ended up doing the draft outside in someone's lawn, which was awesome. So it all worked out. But anyway, it was good to get away for a little bit, refresh, press the reset button, get ready for a big Q4 that's coming. Although I'll say this. Not looking as big as maybe we thought it was going to be.
No, someone lost something from their fantasy draft, speaking of which.
Yeah, while I was gone, I lost Dying Light 2. Yeah. I don't know if it's good. Is that going to make it interesting now, do you think?
It depends on some of the scores. I didn't tabulate them all. Like I still have one more zero than you.
Okay.
I think. If
We're talking about our video game fantasy draft, by the way, for those of you who don't know.
But it's just going to be who crashed better this time. Like, no one's going to win this.
Right.
It's just
there is no winner.
It's just going to be who lost the least.
That's pretty good. But anyway, we're back, and we'll be back here every Tuesday at twitch.tv/siftedgames at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. It is good to be back. It's good to get back in the swing of things. It was good to come back and have just a metric ton of games to play.
Yeah, there was a lot.
It was hard, honestly, getting through all this stuff for the week, but
still didn't even have time to play Kina.
I played a little bit of it today.
Yeah.
Actually, did you play it at all?
No, it went live for me last night, but I didn't have time. And then this morning I played more Deathloop just to get my head back around it.
We're going to talk about that in a minute.
So I figured we were going to talk about it this week, so I'll dive into it for next week.
I played like 2 hours of it. It's pretty, and cinematically it's gorgeous, but so far the gameplay is like so basic. I mean, like my first action adventure game basic. So we'll tackle Kina in full in next week's episode, but this week we have plenty to talk about. And one topic we're going to have in today's show that it's a little late, I'll just be honest with you, but it's so big that we have to talk about it because there were so many announcements that were made that if we didn't discuss it, we wouldn't be on the record on a lot of stuff. So we're going to do it. What else do I got before we get going? Again, we've been gone for 10 days. Let's see. Ask Shane Anything is this Saturday, and that will be at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Again, it is a live Zoom call where people who pledge at $7 or more per month can jump on the call. As always, like the day before and the morning of, there will be posts reminding you guys. We'll tweet and remind you guys to show up, because if you guys don't show up for the call, there is no Ask Shane Anything. But again, it's happening at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. And so if you are a patron who pledges at $7 or more per month, kind of put that in your calendar for Saturday. Also, I haven't completely given up on the Super Mario Maker 2 live stream where I play your levels. That was a total bust before. I'm trying to make it happen still. Stay in the loop about that. Follow us on Twitter at Sifted Games, and we'll keep you in the loop. What else? I think that's it. The only other thing was coming back was discouraging because our Patreon dropped like $300 a month. I know that's not a big deal for most Patreons. That's like 10% or more of like our Patreon. It's so discouraging.
No breaks for you.
It's horrible, man.
Yeah.
I hadn't taken any vacation for 2 years, and I go on vacation for a week. Imagine if you worked at a job where your boss came to you and he or she said, if you take that first vacation in 2 years, we're going to dock your pay when you come back. That's what happened to me. It's so frustrating. I can't even put it into words. So I came back all refreshed and happy, and then I looked at our Patreon, and I was like, oh my God. And the sad part was, like, we lost some people who had been patrons for a while. Like, people who had just been there since the beginning, who just completely dropped their pledges. We had a bunch of people who were supporting at higher tiers that dropped it down to $4. It's not good, people. It's not good at all. But here we are for episode 271, and we're going to deliver a good one for you guys today. We're going to kick things off with a game that everyone's talking about, and that game is Deathloop. Matt, Game of the Year stuff being thrown around about this game. A 10 out of 10 from IGN for this game. Are you surprised at some of the praise for this?
I feel like I'm losing my mind. 10 out of 10 for this. And
look, IGN is a little more loosey-goosey with its perfect scores than a lot of outlets.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I've only played about 3 hours, 2-3 hours of this, between 2 and 3 hours. The concept of this being more than a 7 is literally insane to me. I cannot adequately express how completely neutral I am about this game. This game this game provokes no response from me. It is a video game. Like, I don't get it. And I've been saying this since, probably from over a year now, where like every time they do a preview of it or they show it, I don't get it. I don't understand what's compelling about this thing. Like,
this is one game that I nailed, though, for our draft.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I said that it was going to get a high score. Even if I thought it didn't deserve it,
right.
I thought it was going to get high scores.
It's, I mean, like, there's elements I like. Yeah, the concept is cool. I do like Colt as a character. Like, I think he's funny for the most part. And, like, his responses to things as he's learning what's happening is funny. But, like, in terms of how it plays, it feels just like the same thing Arcane's always made. It's a little slippery. I don't like the gunplay. The stealth feels sort of loose and not very satisfying. I'm never sure I'm doing it right, but sometimes I just get through a thing and it's fine, and I guess I did it, The rooms are weirdly sterile. Like, they're full of detail, but there's nothing to interact with. There's nothing to do.
Yeah.
It's very linear. It's even once you get past the point where it's like, okay, go out and do what you need to do, like whatever you want to do, it's still, you're still kind of walking down hallways that are disguised as beaches and stuff. Really awkward platforming because the water kills you instantly.
Platforming is really
and all
bad.
that. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, why did everyone think this is so? I mean, it's not bad. Like, it's not like making me say, "Oh my, this game's terrible." But the praise it's getting and I mean, I don't get it. I don't have anything else to say. I'm just like, what? Like, what am I missing? I feel like I need someone to come like point to things on the screen that I don't understand. Like, I have not felt this left out about a game since I can't remember. Like, it's bizarre to me. Like, I feel like I'm missing something obvious. And
now you know how I feel about the Souls games.
Yeah, I guess. Like, but like even the Souls people are kind of like, I love this game, but it's this flaw and that flaw.
I do understand why people like the Souls games.
But this game's like riding like a 9.5 average or something, and it just baffles me. I don't get it. What am I missing? Why is this compelling? Like, I am so bored playing this game. I don't understand what's happening.
I am torn on this game. So there are moments where I do think it's brilliant, but it's not brilliant the whole way through.
Right.
And for scores like that, it should be brilliant the whole way through.
Yeah.
One thing I both love and hate about it is it's a roguelike. You end up repeating the same sections of the game over and over. I've generally not been a huge fan of roguelikes in the past. I like this one more than most because it's easier.
It's super easy.
It's like almost too easy.
I fell asleep playing it at one point the other night.
Because it like a lot of Arcane's other games, you can play it how you want. You can play it as a stealth game, or you can go in guns blazing. However, the way the levels are designed, it's very obvious that there are two paths. There's the sneaky path that's always along the edge, and then there's the down the middle path where you need to kill everybody, basically.
Yeah, and it's weird because, like, the first time you really run into that mechanic, it calls it out with the floating text.
Yeah, the floating text.
And I was like, okay. And then, like, after a little more playtime, I was like, oh, all of it's like that. Like, it wasn't like, I thought it was kind of giving me an example, like, here you can sneak around or you can do that. But I didn't realize it was like, oh, we're going to give you a sneaky path and a gunplay, go loud path.
Yeah.
And never the twain. And if you try to sneak through the other path,
Good luck.
Good luck. You know, you're not that you're gonna die because the game's super easy, but like you're just gonna have to shoot people.
You could die. I mean, I do die eventually. But
most of my deaths have been from falling in water.
Falling in water, or not knowing that I'm even being hit. Like,
yeah, that is
it's
true.
It's very subtle that you're taking damage. So sometimes I'm trying to like climb up something, and I have my back turned. I don't know if the enemies have spotted me, and they get in shots before I even realize that I'm getting hit. And next thing I know, like I turn around and they're right there and they kill me. That's how I've died the most in this game. But back to the point I was making before. So I like that it's easier, but also it means that the runs are so much longer, like every time. Like my first run was like 2.5 or 3 hours. And then you die and you get sent back to the beach where you started. And it's the time commitment to me. To
getting back to zero, basically. I mean, it's not terrible, but also like because you get like, you know, you get 2 respawns, basically.
Yeah.
With the reprise.
And the third one
ability.
you die for good.
Yeah. Like it takes so long for me to die that many times. A couple times, like I've died the third time and then pop back on the beach. I'm like, what the hell is it? I forgot that it was like
that's how it
that
works.
you would end up back at the beginning of the beginning.
The runs last so long.
Yeah, and because it doesn't really feel that different from any normal shooter to me. Like it doesn't.
Yeah. I feel like I'm playing a shooter where I can't die, basically.
Yeah. Like almost like a super hot kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's not that tough. Like it's usually like I make a mistake or I get tripped up by the bad jumping platforming stuff. Like I haven't really had a problem with the enemies too much. Yeah. Outside of like, you know, the odd explosion here or like somebody
turrets. Every once in a while you turn a corner and a turret's just there and it just mows you down.
Also, I think I have to finally admit that I just really hate how Arcane designs their UIs. Like I just aesthetically, I just find them repulsive. I hate as soon as that slanted health bar popped up, I was like, oh no, I don't want to look at that.
Doesn't it look like there's like an anomaly or like a glitch?
Yeah, it looks like a lot of their stuff looks like that, and I don't like the menu design. Like and you have to especially on PS. I'm playing on PS5, and so everything's done like a cursor, like a mouse, like you're controlling a mouse, and you get a highlight. I'm like, that's annoying. Like it's a minor thing, but it was just it didn't when starting the game and having to move the cursor around to highlight things and having it start on things that were not what I wanted to select and have to move it. Like it was kind of a not great first impression just from a user standpoint.
Maybe we should rewind a bit and share with people what the game actually is.
Yeah.
So it is a roguelike, and the game starts, you wake up on this beach as a dude.
Well, first you're doing a thing
killed.
And you get killed by this woman.
You're murdered by this woman, and then you wake up on a beach.
Yeah.
And you have no idea who you are, where you are, what you're supposed to be doing, and you start seeing the pop-up text in the world that kind of pushes you along.
Which is supposed to be you talking to yourself, basically.
Right.
It's like it's other versions of you who know what's happened already,
right.
And they're tired of you not remembering.
Yeah.
And and
you actually see another version of you.
Yeah, who saves you at one point. Yeah.
I still don't understand. I'll be honest with you, Matt. I'm still not 100% clear what's going on in this game. Like I know there's you have to kill a bunch of people. I think the most I've killed before I died was 4 of the assassins.
What are they called?
I don't remember.
The begins with a V, I think.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem too. Is like there was part of me when I first started, when you first start to get the premise that there's all these like, kind of basically super powered assassins running around. I was like, oh, we're gonna get to kind of figure out who they are and have to learn how to approach them. Not really.
No.
Like you just sort of kill them.
Like they're actually not that hard to kill.
Yeah, and they're
either.
They're not personality. Like I was expecting, I guess, kind of like more like a No More Heroes thing, where it's like everybody is like unique and and they do have unique powers, but like they have about as much personality and relevance as the Mega Man villains. You kill them and you get their thing, and that's it. Like it's just like okay, like even Hitman. That's I don't know why I keep comparing this to Hitman in my head. And I know you don't like Hitman, but like there's an element of like. I am starting to piece together what the story is about, like what the anomaly is and why the time loop is happening, sort of, and all that stuff. But it's all being pieced together out of like notes I find, and like you find little notes, and that adds like a little like pop up, like a little basically like a lore thing where he figures out more, and eventually you can put that together. It becomes kind of an impromptu side quest sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it really feels archaic, especially in the sense of like. I keep thinking of Hitman, and then I think of Hitman 3, and I think of how I got to know what Hitman 3's characters and targets were going to do by watching them.
Right.
Whereas in this, I have to read about it. It's like a show don't tell thing.
Yeah, I mean, there is like a tagging system in the game,
which I hate.
Well,
that tagging system is irritating as hell.
It's useful though because it tells you what weapon they have.
Oh, sure.
And then you can track their movements.
The info's useful, but the way you have to do it is dumb because you have to hit down on the D-pad, and you're trying to if you got a cluster of enemies, you can't really target all of them, and then you target. It thinks the cursor's over the one you already tagged, so you untag that one, and you go. It's just just let me tag things. Just let me look at them. Far Cry it. Let me look at them for a while and tag them. Or at least don't make me untag. Why would I want to untag them? I don't understand.
I don't get it either.
It's just it's things like that where I'm just I'm trying to engage with you, game, but you're making it irritating the whole way through. And then when it does happen and things blow up and I have to fight, I don't even like doing that. So I don't get it. It's a compelling premise, but I don't feel like the premise is even done very, very much justice in the process because it's presented such a boring manner.
I feel like the game is like if We Happy Few and Returnal had a love child.
Yeah, that makes yeah.
It's like We Happy Few's world with a lot of the design decisions from Returnal.
Now, except without the survival crap.
Yeah.
At least that's not in it.
Yeah. Now, when you die the third time, you don't start completely over from scratch like Returnal. You'll keep some of your weapons.
Yeah, everything you finish like a section with, or like a quest section basically, you keep the weapons you're holding when you end it. You keep the upgrades. You keep the trinkets and stuff. So you do become, as you finish sections of your missions, you become more powerful, and you start with you still have to go through the thing and like pick up the hacking device and do all that. And they do a pretty good job. At least I've only had to.
The design's pretty smart.
Yeah, I mean I've only had to restart that like twice.
Yeah.
But like outside of the times you're forced to as part of the tutorial. But like Hades, I do appreciate when a roguelike does the thing where they acknowledge how many times it's you give me something different.
Yep.
A response from the characters. And they've done, Colt definitely has a response to just about everything.
Yeah.
So
the writing is good.
Writing's pretty good.
The voice acting's really good.
Yeah, I do think I think it falls a little too much into the whole everyone's just yelling at each other thing.
I've stumbled across some pretty interesting conversations.
Yeah, here and there. I think
humanize the enemies in a lot of ways.
Yeah, the relationship, the at least early on, the relationship between Colt and Juliana, who's the other person who's trying to kill him all the time,
appears to be like his prior girlfriend or whatever.
Right. I find that relationship to be trying a little hard.
Yeah.
Like they're both yelling at each other, and it doesn't feel like people. It feels like comedy.
Yeah. It's definitely comedic, this game.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't feel like the way two people would interact with each other.
Okay.
It just feels like it'll be funny if they do this. It's like, okay, well, that's not really. Especially like you say, there are some overheard conversations that do feel humanizing, but you don't get that from the protagonist.
No. They're just from the people that you're supposed to kill.
Yeah. And of course Juliana, because she invades, Dark Souls style, she invades your game periodically, and you have to fight her off.
Yep.
And you can have.
But she can only do that so many times.
Right. But she can be a CPU, or she can be another player.
And you can also, by the way, if you're watching the B-roll at the beginning, when you start, you choose whether you want to be the guy trying to survive or whether you want to invade other people's games.
Yeah. Although you do have to finish the tutorial section of Colt before you can
select the invasion option.
I will also say I tried it both ways, and I barely got invaded at all with the CPU. I got invaded more often with the players, but I found fighting players less annoying than fighting the CPU invader.
Interesting.
Because players will react. Like I could throw a grenade and a player would move away, and I'd know which way I thought they were going to move, and I could kind of anticipate that. Whereas the AI is just like, oh, if you're a grenade, I'm still going to shoot you right in the fucking face. Like, it doesn't break their aim. It doesn't make them react. So, like, I actually found for once, I found the human players to be less intrusive. Also, the CPU only invaded me, I think, twice. But both times, she popped up basically next to me.
Oh, yeah, like out of nowhere.
Like almost like, what?
But she's easy to kill, too.
Yeah, but at least like with the humans, it feels a little more like what I think the intention is, that you're being cat and mouse.
Stalked.
Yeah, like there's more to that when the human player is doing it. I don't know if that's intentional or not.
Yeah. Now,
I have not played as Juliana yet. Oh. I haven't done that from the other side yet.
I do think the design in some places is pretty smart. Like the way the levels are designed, so when you do die, you don't have to go through all the tedious crap again. When we first started playing it, I didn't realize how it was all going to work. And then as I died and kept trying, it's pretty smart how they've designed stuff, so you don't have to do
the level
a lot of
design
things over
the level design is, other than the kind of obvious stealth path gun path. Like a lot of it's really small. When you come out of the control room the first time, I'm like, oh, I got to go all the way back and get to the room. And then I'm like, can I just jump over all that ice? And like go and like if you risk your life and jump across water
and
over the ice,
anytime
and you are, ice is water is an insta kill, but like
and the jumping sucks.
Yeah, the jumping's terrible, but if you do it, you get around that thing and you're back where you need to go in like a minute versus like 10 minutes. So I'm like, they are very open to. And one time in the tutorial, I decided to just go the other direction, and it popped up with things like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you don't have to go the way we tell you to go all the time. You can go this way if you want." I'm like, "That's cool." It is a very fairly linear game. It's not as free range as I kind of was expecting it to be for some reason. I don't know why I had that impression.
The level design is very linear.
Yeah, but
you have the two paths. You have the stealth path and the guns blazing path.
Right, but like in general, it does a decent job of not making me feel railroaded.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It feels like I get to make some choices as to how I approach something, which is not something they've always succeeded at in other games. I think Dishonored 2 they did, but like I felt pretty stuck to the floor in Prey for the most part. Would lose my way a lot in that actually when I had to go back and go fight. But that doesn't happen in this one. Maybe because it's so handholdy. I know there's people that say you should play it without the objective marker. No,
I have not tried that.
I might do that.
I've played with the marker.
I might do that if I liked it more. Yeah. But like I can see that being if you really enjoy the game and want to like do it that way, I can see that being cool. Honestly, I don't even know if I want to go back and play it again.
I don't feel like you should have to jimmy games to enjoy them.
Probably not, but it is an option.
Yeah. Maybe I'll look into that.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Maybe.
Yeah. I've also noticed like it's interesting like watching people on Twitter and my friends who have played it more, like a lot of them have been sort of like they start it and they're just like, oh my god, this is amazing, and by the end of the game they're like, I was ready for that to be over. Like there's a sentiment that I've seen a lot where like it gets more I get more bored with this game as it goes on.
Yeah.
Which is not super unique for once the game shows you all its tricks.
Yeah.
That can happen. Anyone who's played a Ubisoft open world game knows what that feels like, right?
For those last 25 hours.
25 hours. I'm just like, I don't think there's anything left to see, really. We're just hitting the sword button a lot.
Those first 40 or 50 were pretty good, though.
Oh, yeah. DLC, you say? Yes. Mm-hmm.
But look, the weapons, like you can upgrade them. They're with trinkets. And one thing I did find, there's like a risk reward. Like if you take the easier kind of stealthy path, you don't get as much of that stuff.
Yeah, you do pick up a lot of that from the enemies.
Yeah, so if you do actually go guns blazing, which I think is more challenging than the other way.
Also,
you
like
the
game throws ammo at you pretty regularly.
Yeah.
The game is definitely built to do it either way, but going stealth feels like you're passing things up.
Yep, you are.
Not that I have fun shooting people because I don't find the gunplay good.
Yeah,
but
I think the gunplay feels terrible.
Yeah,
terrible.
To the point that
terrible.
I mean, you know how I feel about shotguns. Terrible gunplay. You know how I feel about shotguns. I don't particularly like using shotguns, but shotguns, I just run up. I've turned into a Gears of War multiplayer jerk in this game. I just run up.
I got a perk really early that helps your gun be more effective at longer range. I got a trinket, and so I installed it on the shotgun. And usually a shotgun's only good from 15 to 20 feet. Now that shotgun's good from like 30 to 40, and you're right. Like I just ended up using the shotgun pretty much the whole way through.
Yeah. I had a shotgun and it's like one-shot long-range super damage rifle with that used the heavy ammo. And I was like, yep, that's pretty much all I need.
Yeah. And then you start gaining abilities like. Eventually, like you get the blink ability that's like from Dishonored. So you can definitely see the arcane pedigree in this game, which is something that I'm surprised at. This is also made by Arcane Lyon, which is kind of a new studio, like an imprint of Arcane. So I wondered if the pedigree was going to be there.
Oh, it is.
It is. It absolutely is. Like you can tell this is an Arcane game. I'll also say this too: the game looks better than I thought it was going to.
Somewhat, yeah.
Graphically,
I don't think the characters look very good.
No, I've never liked Arcane's art style. I'll be honest with you.
I mean, this is more normal than they're usually. It's definitely not Dishonored because it's just very stylized. I'm just like even like looking at like even the title screen, like Colt and Juliana don't really have expressions on their faces. Like I don't know who any of these characters are. Like you could show me like a bunch of pictures of the main characters in this game other than Colt and Juliana, and I probably wouldn't know who they were.
There are no cinematics in the game.
Yeah,
none.
You never see anybody really up close.
No,
It's weird. Like,
I mean, everything is just happening live. There's no just set cinematics with fixed camera angles.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of get like that's. Like, I guess there's an element reading the reviews and stuff. There's sort of that part of some of the praise sort of is the same praise that got like the Outer Wilds got. That was kind of a big interlocking machine that you had to figure out as you go. I found the Outer Wilds approach to this way more compelling than what Deathloop is doing, because the Outer Wilds, I don't know, the Outer Wilds didn't feel like it was.
Are you thinking Outer
me.
Worlds or Outer Wilds?
Outer Wilds.
Oh, okay.
Outer
Worlds also, I think there are some comparisons to this as
somewhat.
well.
I mean, yeah, certainly in terms of loose gunplay.
Right.
But no, exactly. Outer Wilds, the puzzle-y game where you go out and they have to.
I was just making sure.
Yeah, it was. No, that's the thing that everybody mixes those two up.
Yep, it's easy.
But no, Outer Wilds with obviously Deathloop is not the same kind of thing. You're not trying to catch up all the time. It's not like Ocarina or Majora's Mask or Outer Wilds. You're trying to like I gotta get here at this time, or
right.
You're switching time zones more than like, and that will kind of determine what happens more than like you have to redo this thing and make sure you get to this point by a minute and 30 into the time. That's not as. Or at least not so far, has been not a thing you really had to worry about, which is good because I hate that. Like, I don't like being on a weird timer and like
me either.
Suddenly I figure out, that's what I have to do. But like 12
minutes. That's why I never finished Majora's Mask back in the day.
Or like 12 minutes where it's like, now I know what to do, but the loop is almost over, so I have to wait and do it again and wait through the first 4 minutes of it, and then now I get
now I can do whatever I can.
Deathloop at least avoids that.
Yeah.
Like that's not there. But
there's other stuff I like though. Like I like the hack-a-majig. If you do come across turrets and they don't mow you down, you can take control of them and pick them up. It's like a little briefcase. And then I love turrets. I love them in every game I play. And if I can get a turret, I'm going to use it. I love using it in this game. It's awesome to like surprise enemies, put it around a corner, and then kind of coax the enemies out of a building or whatever, and just watch them come out and get mowed down, and then go pick up the turret, and then take it to the next corner and rinse and repeat. There are cool elements of this game, and like you, I don't think it's a bad game at all. I think it is a good game, but the praise that it's been getting,
I don't think it's bad. I just think it's fine, and B, it's not for me. Like I don't see what anyone's talking about on this thing. Like I don't.
How do you feel about games that get perfect scores, Matt? Do you feel like they need to have at least a somewhat wide appeal? Or does it appeal matter?
Not really. I mean, I think if a person thinks, if the reviewer
and I've never given one, so I don't know.
I mean, I have, but I was working on a 5-point scale.
That's easy. I've given 5 out of 5.
Yeah. I think if the reviewer really feels that way about it, I'm fine with that. I don't think a 10 out of 10 necessarily indicates a flawless, perfect game that every single human being that picks a controller up should enjoy, to an ecstatic level.
But do you think there's a certain level though of bless you? Do you think there's a certain level, though, where, like, maybe 50% of players should at least enjoy the game?
I mean, I don't see how anyone can gauge that.
Yeah, it's
like,
hard.
A review is subjective. If this is something, I don't want someone to lie about how much they like a game if they think that other people won't like it as much, because that doesn't help me either.
Yeah.
The thing that gets me is not that IGN gave it a 10 out of 10. The thing that gets me is that everybody is giving it
that kind
of
from
score.
A lot of outlets,
And I just don't get it. It's baffling to me. Like it's not like I'm like, oh, this game should be a 0. It should be a 4 out of 10 or whatever. It's not. No, it's fine. But it's like, I don't get what's special about this. And I've read a lot of stuff and tried to peruse a lot of tweets and about to figure it out. And I don't. It just doesn't make it. It just doesn't do it for me. There's nothing about it that hooks me or makes me interested or makes in the gameplay is so bland to me that it doesn't make me want to play anymore. The only thing that really fully appeals to me is Colt as a character, and that's not quite enough because there's not that much character to this game. Like he talks a lot in the beginning, but it kind of settles into just sort of random commentary after a while. And like I don't, until you run into Juliana or a plot point happens, like there's not much to grab onto there. And then like the fact that the big bads are just sort of slightly harder to kill normal people.
They're not that much.
I really thought there was going to be more meat to that, and there wasn't. And it's weird. Like I just don't know what I'm supposed to latch onto narratively, and I don't know what I'm supposed to latch onto mechanically. And I'm almost left feeling, especially once you get the blink and things like that. I'm just like, I almost just want to play Dishonored 2 again because at least Dishonored 2 seems to, I don't know. Like I don't find the way they've implemented the roguelike elements particularly compelling. But I also don't find them annoying. They're just sort of there.
I do like them more than most games in that subgenre, but again, because it's a double-edged sword, because it's easy, and I can make a lot of progress. But then that just makes dying all the more soul-crushing, because it's like, man, I had this huge arsenal of weapons that I loved using, and a lot of times it seems like my favorite gun is the one that I don't get back whenever I respawn. I don't know how that works, how they decide which weapons you get to keep after you respawn.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's because I think you get to keep anything you've unlocked, but obviously you have to finish a section with that gun to
That's the other thing we should have
it.
mentioned. So you finish a mission objective, and then you have to escape.
Yeah.
You basically have to make it back to your home base.
Right.
And then once you do that, and you'll keep everything that you collected on that mission.
Yeah. Anything you have, I mean, if you got a gun and dropped it for another gun, you don't get to keep that.
Right.
But anything you have on you that you didn't have last time, any other times you came back to the hub will be
And they
unlocked.
do let you keep a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
your inventory's pretty big.
No, I feel like you once you know that, I feel like you can decide the things you like, and if you find something you're cool with, it's like, okay, I can give up this gun I use all the time to carry this back to the end of the level so I can unlock it and use it whenever I want. Like that's, it feels like a pretty fair system, and I haven't had a problem with that. But like, I think that's what I like, because a couple times, the one time that happened, I was like, oh, I lost that gun, and I think it was because I'd only just found it and I didn't finish a level with it. So that's why, otherwise I think I would have been able to keep it, or at least use it out of my arsenal next time I went to, when I got back to the hub and went to the next mission. Or retried the mission, rather.
Yep. Like, thinking about all my friends who play games, I do wonder, like, what percentage of my friends that play would be happy if they bought this game? And I've never reviewed games that way. I've always just looked at the game and decided whether I liked it and compared it against other games on the same platform, and just gave it scores that way. But it would be hard for me to give a game a 10 out of 10 that I did not feel like a lot of people would be happy with buying at full price, I guess. It's a strange position, I think, to be in as a critic. Is your job to just tell people whether you like something or not, or is it your job to tell them whether they should spend their money on it? And those are two different things. And I think as a critic, I'm kind of a blend of the two. Like, I do, when I evaluate games, I do care if I think most people are going to enjoy it. And I don't know if it would come through in my scores, because I'm always scoring a game against Game Y against Game Z, based upon what they're doing on that same platform. But it would be hard for me to give, even if I loved this game, it would be hard for me to give it a perfect score, I guess is what I'm saying. It would probably ultimately affect the end score at least a little bit. I don't know. This is one of those games that I feel like puts you in a tough position as a critic, because it may resonate with you, and whoever reviewed it with IGN, it resonated with them big time, and I won't take that away from them. Like, it's their opinion, and they loved it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Your opinion can't be wrong because it's your opinion. But when you give it that 10 out of 10, to me, it's a signal.
I mean, I won't fully, I know the opinion can't be wrong thing is something we were sort of arose in the 90s. I don't agree with that.
Really?
No. I mean, like, I'm not going to tell the IGN guy he doesn't know what he's talking about. But as Roger Ebert used to tell a story about Gene Siskel back in the 70s when he was having an argument with another critic at a Chicago bar. Siskel said, there is a point at which a difference of opinion shades off into an error of fact. When you say that The Valachi Papers is a better film than The Godfather, you are wrong.
Yeah.
And there's and I think time is borne that out.
If the IGN editor said the gunplay is amazing and it feels so responsive, that's wrong.
Right.
That's factually wrong.
And you can like some,
I don't know if he did, by the way.
You can I don't know. I didn't read the whole thing. You can like The Valachi Papers more than The Godfather, but calling it a better film is ridiculous from a technical standpoint, which I think is a distinction you draw in game reviews all the time.
Yeah.
I tended to have taken a more holistic approach to game reviews, where I'm sort of reviewing them as an art object more than a mechanical function. I lean more on kind of the traditional element of the traditional approach to film criticism versus the Consumer Reports idea. And I do feel that for the most part, at least with the perspective of 20 years of having done it, I think Consumer Reports makes more sense for video game reviewing. Not 100%, but you got to get some artistic opinion in there too.
Actually,
but you are very much evaluating a product more than, because it's not like a film critic has to review what it's like to put your eyes on the screen,
right?
You know,
right.
Whereas, no matter how brilliant a game may be, if the controls are not workable, you're going to have a bad time. And that's more of an, you know, I don't know if it's objective, but it does feel more like feel more like you're criticizing something more like how it feels to drive a car than how it feels to look at a painting.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I agree with that. Yep. And so you're right. There are different elements of it. And I'm interested to hear from chat because things have changed so much, Matt. Mm-hmm. When we first started, we didn't want to be, but we were gatekeepers because so few people had early access to games back then. There were like 100 of us who got games early and got to play them before they came out and got to deliver our opinion on them. Now, there are just thousands and thousands of YouTubers and streamers who are playing these games live in front of people. And so my question for the chat is, what do you look for from reviews now? Are you looking for advice on whether to buy the game, or have you already figured that out at that point and you're looking for sort of pontification on the game or ways that a streamer or a critic or a YouTuber can look at games differently from maybe other people? What are people looking for now from game reviews? Are they really relying on reviews at this point to decide whether to buy stuff or not?
I don't know. I rarely see people point out specific reviews about anything like that. I generally see them talk about consensus.
Yeah.
Like it's almost always seems to be more of looking at what everybody thinks as sort of a conglomerate and maybe picking out a few pull quotes that are on Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes and then deciding kind of from there if that tips you over the edge of buying or playing this game.
Scorpio's Finest says, actually, to that point, to be honest, I bought Kena today based on review scores. It's a game I was on the fence about, and reviews tipped me over. So that's kind of exactly what you were explaining there.
Yeah. I mean, there are reviewers that I weight more in my own mind because often because I know them personally.
Right.
And, you know, like I'm going to take something Patrick Klepek says about a game more seriously than like some other reviewer I've never heard of because I know him and I know his taste. And not always is it, oh, Patrick liked it, so I'll like it. Sometimes it's Patrick didn't like that and I know he doesn't like that, but I don't mind that kind of thing. It's that kind of thing.
For instance, I will respect the opinion of someone who's done it longer.
Yeah.
Like I will take the opinion of someone who's been reviewing games as long as we have over a 21-year-old YouTuber. Or I just will. They have more of a frame of reference.
Yeah, like the San Francisco Chronicle movie critic when I was growing up was Mick LaSalle, and I don't think I've ever agreed with him on anything. But like if I read a review of a movie I was interested in and he hated it, there was a pretty good chance I was going to like it. And that makes him a good critic. Psychology. It makes him a useful critic.
He's
consistent.
Right.
I know what he thinks. I have an idea
and
of his
taste. And I think that is
taste.
the key to being
and
a
that,
good critic.
As long as you help me make that decision and I'm happy with my decision in the end, I think your review has been successful even if I disagree with it.
Yep. And I think that's a good way to put it. And I think the key to being a good critic is being consistent. So people know I'm a gameplay first guy. At this point, if you don't know that about me, then you don't know me. And so when people listen to my commentary on games, they should know that I'm going to put a little bit more emphasis on how it actually plays and how it feels to play. And hopefully if people like narrative-driven games, they'll be like, well, that's not Shane's forte. I respect his opinion on that, but maybe
Erebus
Matt
Jones,
is a better source for something like
Erebus Jones makes a good point, too. I definitely do that, too.
I know what games I like, so I'm generally just looking to make sure a game isn't a car crash. Okay.
Yeah. Like I do that. I will be like, I'm pretty sure this game is something I'm going to be interested in, and the reviews I read are just like reassuring myself that it is not a buggy mess. For instance, if we were not doing this show, I probably would have held off on Cyberpunk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Cyberpunk is a good example of that.
Right.
Cyberpunk is something that is exactly what I should like, but the reviews would have totally put me off it if I was like a regular consumer.
I mean, that's kind of an anomaly too, because a lot of people still gave it high scores.
Yeah, but like eventually, past the initial stuff, there was like, oh, something's wrong. Yeah. And I mean, look, I probably would have still fallen for it because that one store got it early, and we were like, "Rah!"
Well, we're suckers. Yeah,
of course.
Everyone is a sucker for a certain type of game.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
And this sucker's still sitting around waiting for that patch. So, see you next year, Cyberpunk.
Let's see if there's any other stuff about this, about how people look at reviews in the chat. In fact, let me take the B-roll down right now, and we'll bring up the chat and take a look at it. Oh, unfortunately, it's not being brought in. I'll have to fix it. But we can read a couple at least. Vincent says, Keena's Metacritic is high, but two of the most critical reviews are Polygon and Eurogamer, neither of which is scored. Interesting.
That is an ongoing weirdness there, where like some of the outlets that are most willing to call mainstream and like high profile stuff out do not have
the big
scoring.
budget games don't have a score, so they're not held to account for the actual.
You do have to actually read you got to go past the score, the meta score.
Yeah, but they also have kind of an escape hatch.
True.
They can, because when you don't put. And there was a big rush there for a long time, Matt, where if, like, everyone was like, you don't need numbers on reviews. But it's providing, like, an out for the critic. Because they don't have to go on the record, really, with saying exactly numerically how much they like or dislike it.
Well, if you're an outlier there, you don't get death threats for ruining
you're shielded
the Metacritic
from the fanboys
score.
And from the internet mob and blah, blah, blah. And so I can see where critics probably like not putting scores on games. But do you think it's as effective for people who are looking to use reviews to buy games?
I mean, it depends. I mean, I think scores are silly for the most part in general, and we had difficult. You never know what those scores are translating to because like there's a skew on like we had problems on XPlay where like Metacritic would continually interpret our 3 out of 5 as a 60%, which is not what a 3 out of 5 meant on XPlay. 3 out of 5 was middle of the road. It was average, and like they'd be like, well, 60% is but 60% is not average in game reviews,
right?
Like
70 is
70 or 75, like basically it's grade scoring from school because that was what that I will always maintain that the 7 to 9 scale happened largely because the audience for game reviews when we were growing up was school kids who thought of anything below a 70 as a failure. And so that's where that got skewed. That doesn't happen in a lot of other scored, a 3-star movie review or 2.5-star movie review is not necessarily going to be seen as like a bomb or a slam in a review. It's going to be seen as, mediocre. Whereas a 2.5-star out of 5 video game is going to be like, that might be terrible if you translate it to the Metacritic score because we didn't mean it to be like, it's almost a 50%. Right. We meant it should be like that, and they wouldn't because numerically that's not what a 3 out of 5 translates into.
They're just looking at the math, basically.
Right, but the math is, reviews are not math.
They're not.
Like that is not what that. The score is. I'm like, we would make the argument that score is not your translation of our score is not reflecting what our score means. So that is inaccurate data. Yeah. The math is not the accurate data. What the review says is the accurate data, and you are not representing that properly. And eventually, that was why we were taken off Metacritic because we were tanking scores, averages by just
costing people money
and costing people bonuses. Yeah, that's why we did that because it was like we didn't want to do that anymore. And so there's an element of me that side eyes those aggregate scores on everything because I'm like I don't know how accurate you're translating whatever if you do anything other than the 1 to 10 scale, you are running the risk of having that data translated mathematically rather than in the spirit of how it's meant, and God knows what that does to the aggregate score once you're factored in. It doesn't matter as much now probably because back in the day you had like 20 outlets being average for the aggregate score. Now you have like 120. It's like it's a different game now. Yeah. One score doesn't. I know they weight some of the higher profile places a little harder than
which I was surprised that they admitted to.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like why do I care what IGN thinks more than whatever. But and also how do you weight?
Somebody like us could be working. Right. I mean, I work on a small outlet now. Right. I've been reviewing games for 25 years.
How do you weight? Do you also give that extra weight to all the different IGN outlets that also IGN Italy and IGN France and
or is it just IGN California?
IGN? Does the guy who reviews games for IGN in California somehow matter more than the guy who reviews them in Paris? Like why?
That's absurd. I don't know why.
I don't know if that's how they do it or not, but it's always something I wonder about.
They've admitted that they do that. Yes.
But do they do it? They do the main outlet more than like.
I don't know about that.
That's what I mean. Like the satellite IGN stuff.
I don't know.
Are they weighted as much as the main IGN? Like no location.
My guess
IGN?
Would be no.
Probably not. I don't know. But it's
absurd to think
that's
about.
The stuff that I think about when I look at those aggregate scores. I'm like, what is this number you're actually showing me?
Yeah, there's some kind of a curve in there too for IGN and for GameSpot and these other outlets.
Yeah. I didn't think we were going to end up talking about that during the Deathloop segment.
Well, I kind of did.
A little bit, I guess, because
it
the
is kind of a conundrum. Like 10 out of 10s don't come around very often.
No.
And this is one of them. And I think this is also a case where both you and I agree that neither one of us would give it that type of score.
No, not even close.
There's actually a bunch of good comments from you guys in the chat, and I do have it hooked up now.
I am emphasizing that I do not think I don't want to pan this game. I don't think it's bad. It's just A, not for me, and B, I don't find it to be anything particularly special.
Yep. OTAP says numbers are required even if it's just for fantasy gaming. Ha, funny. Because we can't do our fantasy league without scores.
That's true.
Sneaky says, why do scores matter? I just want to know if the game is good and it isn't bugged. That goes back to what someone else was saying, is like, is it not broken? Bachby says, not sure about what that Rotten Tomatoes under 70 might be given a chance to be seen because the price entry isn't the same, but it can affect box office numbers. I'm not sure what he's saying there. Emperor Dread, I've never trusted IGN since the God Hand 6 out of 10 review.
Was it 6 out of 10? I thought it was 3 out of 10.
I think it was lower than that. They may have changed it later.
Yeah.
God Hand, I don't think is a great game, though.
No. 3 out of 10, probably not, but I think God Hand's one of the most overrated games of its era. I found it to be utterly forgettable.
Yeah.
And like, there's a couple things in there that would not be in a modern game because they're kind of offensive.
I think one Supermaster Gamer really has it. Multiple reviews and people I trust with their opinion. I think that's really what you need to do, Matt, is you need to find people that you know you trust.
Yeah, IGN was 3 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah.
For God Hand. And it's still there.
They haven't
still
changed
up.
it.
They haven't changed that.
Yeah. That is low.
Imagine Babies is still outranking God Hand.
Okay, so anyway, there you go. That's Deathloop, and like a 15-minute discussion on reviews and review scores and what they mean and what value there is for those in this day and age. And I think the thing too is that things have changed so much in just like the last 5 or 10 years. It's like, it's not just me at Game Trailers and like the 5 guys who worked with me. It's not just Matt at G4, handling reviews for X-Play and shows like that. There are just thousands of people now getting early access to games. It can be hard to sort through it all, I think.
Yeah, the signal to noise ratio is just off the chart.
Yeah, that's it. The signal to noise ratio. It's really compounded over the last decade. And so, again, I think really the key is just find people that you trust, At least find people who are consistent. Like, I would hope at this point you would know when you play a game, like, this is a game that Shane's going to like. Or you play a game and you're like, this is a game that Matt Kyle is going to like. And then when we talk about games, I think whether you should trust what we're saying or not based upon how well you know us already. So I hope there's some value in that. I think there is value in that. We've been doing this for 20-some years. I've written reviews, I think, for every publication except IGN at this point. I think IGN is the only major publication I've never drawn a paycheck from at this point. And obviously, things have changed a lot. There's a lot more people doing it now across YouTube and Twitch and blah, blah, blah. And I do like how people have found new kind of angles on how to do the reviews. There's like the live review where people play along and they're like kind of giving it scores as they go.
And I'll also say, because Sneaky Solid Snake says, isn't there a chance they get paid off too? No. I have never heard of that happening.
Yeah.
In 20 years of doing this. If it happens, it does not happen often enough to hear about.
I'll be honest, like back in the day, no. Now,
I mean, now you got YouTubers maybe who don't disclose whatever. But I think he's talking about IGN and people being put in the aggregate scores and stuff like that.
If you work at a big outlet, there's so many people around looking over your shoulder. Like, when people would come into my office at Game Trailers with a really high score or a really low score, and we talk about it, like I'm looking for that stuff. Like,
yeah, there have been times when people definitely were suggesting we not run lower scores, but I can't remember a single time I've ever heard of someone being paid for a higher review score. Like, that's
I've never had
thing.
Anyone come to me and be like, you need to change your score.
No.
Ever. I've had marketing get really pissed because they had a huge sale with a publisher and then we review it and we don't give it a great score, and then for the next 4 days the whole site is plastered with marketing for the game, and I've had marketing kind of give me the side eye and be like, that sucks, and I'm like, it does suck for you. It doesn't suck for our users because we're giving them the straight dope on the game, and they'll appreciate that. And that's why they come back, and that's why we have enough traffic so that you can sell that $250,000 marketing deal to publisher.
And Soundboy says IGN might not get paid off, but they get sponsored by the games they review. But the reviewers are completely separate from that.
Yeah, that has nothing to do
with
with
the editorial has nothing to do with ad sales and branded content. They are completely separate. They're not even the same city.
Yeah,
like it's not a thing. That
when I worked at GameSpot, their phones physically could not call our phones.
Yeah.
And then when I worked at Game Trailers, I was like the cop. So I would go in marketing meetings with the marketing team, and they would pitch stuff that editorially we shouldn't do, and I'd put the kibosh on it right there in front of the client. I'm like, we can't do that. That's going to sacrifice our editorial integrity. If we do that, we lose our audience. If we don't have our audience, you're not going to want to market with us. And they're like, you're right, we get it. And it's funny when you explain it to them, and there's somebody like me there to explain it to them, the customer gets it. They're like, oh, I understand. You're right. If people don't trust your reviews, then you don't have an audience for us to even market to. So you basically, you're going to bite your own hand by doing that. You're going to lower your audience, and you're not going to be able to sell page views or pre-rolls to anyone. So anyway, it seems like once every 2 years we go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun discussion.
It's a constant apparent suspicion, but it is simply not a thing that happened. Also, if you're worried about that, and like the irony of that is always to me that like the people accuse the major outlets of that, and then often offer up like YouTubers and Twitch streamers as sort of the honest alternative. Those are the people taking this stuff. Yeah, those are the people who are literally. They had to be forced by the FCC to start disclosing that regularly.
And there's no way to enforce it.
No, there's no way to know one way or the other.
There's no way to know at all.
Like there are no. A Twitch streamer generally their only ethical border or boundary is themselves. I guarantee you at places like IGN or Polygon or wherever, there's a whole editorial team, and someone in that editorial team is not going to be cool with shenanigans.
Yeah.
Like the idea that everyone would be willing to go along with that is literally absurd, and I can say that because I know a lot of these people. Like, it just doesn't happen.
Well, here's something to think about. How many IGN editors, Game Trailers editors, GameSpot editors have mansions with Lambos in the garage?
Right.
How many? 0.
Yeah, where is all this payout going?
How do YouTubers have literal mansions with like 3 Lambos? Where's that money coming from? It's not just from ad revenue, people.
No, that's sponsorship.
Yeah, it's sponsorship, big dollar sponsorship. Just something to keep in mind and think about as you go forward in your life. And we are going to go forward with GameFace 271 and move on to the next topic.
But first, we're going to talk about Freshly.
How perfect would it have been if we had a sponsor right there? We like never have sponsors. Yeah. We've had like 3 like in 5 years.
Do you have a reliable VPN server?
And our sponsor is for like real estate usually, which is no conflict of interest whatsoever.
Those now the PlayStation sponsors. Showcase brought to you by MailChimp.
Yep, that's pretty much how it works.
When's the last time someone from IGN said that on camera?
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, all right, let's move on. I mentioned in the open. I'm having a good time. It's good to be back, guys. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the show as well. All right, we're going to move on. The next topic is a topic that I feel a little bad about it being in the show because it has been like 8 days since it happened, and we try to keep GameFace at least within the last 7 days, but this was just too big to not include in the show. So we are going to talk about the PlayStation Showcase that happened while I was gone. Probably my biggest regret was not consuming it live because while I wouldn't have lost my mind like Easy Allies did.
Right. I consumed it vaguely live because like people are like, "What's that?" I'm like, "What? Yeah. What happened?"
It was still
I was
pretty
out.
Amazing.
I went out. I was out doing something, and then I came back and like, I was like, why are people talking about Spider-Man 2? I'm like, because I thought they were talking about the Raimi movie. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, okay.
Oh, is right. So we've been laying into PlayStation this year because it deserves it because there's no games coming out for PlayStation 5 really.
And then this time it's like here's all the things coming later. Like,
yeah. Now it's like here's all the things coming in March.
Yep.
Oh my God, March 2022. I'm not even exaggerating, Matt. May be the best month for video games ever.
Okay, well let's wait until the rest of it
gets
half
delayed
of them come
out
in
of March 22.
Yeah,
it's definitely going to happen. But anyway, I would just say this: I wish I got as excited about anything in my life as Easy Allies does over like a video game trailer.
Yeah,
like I want the drugs that they're taking.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know it.
I don't think it's fake.
No,
I just wish I had it.
Yeah.
Like where does that come from? Like.
I don't know. A life with very few disappointments.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know where it comes from, but I definitely do not have it. I've never had it.
I don't know.
Ever in my life. I don't know. But anyway, I was still very excited about this. And like when I got back and started looking, I was like, damn, I missed some freaking mortar shells that were dropped. Sony dropped the bomb, dude. Holy cow. PlayStation Showcase shut me up. Someone who's been talking a little bit of smack about PlayStation this entire year, that it's an anemic lineup of exclusives.
And what did I say? They just don't want to show it yet. There's stuff. They got stuff.
Holy moly.
They got things.
The PlayStation
I heard things about Marvin's Room.
Delivered, and then some, and nothing was bigger than God of War Ragnarok. Finally, we got to look at the next God of War coming to both PS4 and PS5. That was finally confirmed with the PlayStation Showcase. It had been conjecture before that and rumors. It is, in fact, coming to PlayStation 4 and PS5. Matt, can you tell that it's coming to both PS4 and PS5?
I don't think so.
Really?
Not really. I mean, I'm sure it'll look amazing. It already looks
amazing.
amazing.
We can see it right here.
Yeah, but I mean, on my 4K screen running on my PS5, et cetera.
I mean, I watched it on my 4K TV, all the trailer and everything.
Yeah, it's not quite the same as a native signal going straight to your thing.
Look, I'm not saying it doesn't look good. It looks amazing. But do I think it could have looked better if it was a PlayStation 5 exclusive? Yes, I definitely do.
Maybe.
Especially some of the stuff we've started seeing here over the last couple months. Like some of these games from Korea that we're starting to see, where they're just like, you know what, screw the PS4. This is all next gen.
Yeah, I mean, to
me, it looks pretty much just like God of War 2018.
Nah, it looks better than that.
Does it?
Yeah, the lighting is definitely different. You can tell that there's more happening here. It's not going to look this good on the PS4. It's still going to look good, obviously. And I know there's the big scandal over the fact that the getting in the boat animation is the same. It's just like, okay, people,
I mean, I don't care about stuff like that.
No, it's like, why would Kratos get in a boat different? Like 3 days later.
I mean, that's silly. Yeah. I'm just talking like technically, like how many polygons is pushing. Like
I don't think that's an issue. I don't find that to be an issue. Like it looks fine.
I mean, it looks great. I'm just saying that I wish it were a PS5 exclusive because I think it would look better.
I thought you were gameplay first.
I am gameplay first, but I still care about graphics.
Yeah, but the graphics look great.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about some hypothetical better graphical whatever. Yeah,
Matt, I just remember when I played God of War 2018, it was the best looking game on the PS4.
Yeah.
This is not going to be the best looking game on PS5.
What will?
Well, we're going to talk about it here in about 5 minutes as we start going through all these awesome games that Sony showed. Like Spider-Man 2, for example, which is PS5 exclusive and looks so good that people thought it was CG.
Right.
Nobody said that about this game.
No, but Spider-Man 2 is also
2 years away.
2 years away, and there's not as much happening detail-wise in the environments in that.
That's true.
That's just a building. It's just buildings. This is doing a lot with the landscape.
That's true.
There's a lot more detail, space, a lot more detail. Even on, I mean, it's not like Spider-Man's costumes are undetailed, but just look at all the stuff happening just on Kratos alone. Like there's a lot there. And that's a great shot.
It really is.
That was really cool.
Well, everyone thought he was dead.
Yeah.
And he's not.
He's like, nope.
I mean, this trailer reveals a lot.
Yeah.
Let's start going through some of it.
You really get a sense of the shape of what the game's going to be.
Yep. It picks up right after God of War 2018. After Kratos defeats Baldur, he arrives at Jotunheim with Atreus, who's now like 3 years older, it appears, roughly. He's like a tween now. He's not a little boy. They show up there to scatter Faye's ashes. However, it turns out that Faye was actually a giant called Luffy. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Luffy or Laufey, depending on who you ask.
Which means that Atreus is actually half god and half giant. So that little boy, he is going to turn into a beast eventually.
A very specific beast.
Right, a very specific beast. But Freya, who was kind of your ally in the last game, now hates you. Because you killed her son, Baldur, at the end of the game. And not only does she hate you, Thor also hates you. And they both want revenge because you killed his sons, and Baldur, by the way, was his half-brother. So basically, everything that you did in God of War 2018, Thor and Rhea are trying to get retribution for, revenge for.
This is all very accurate to this is all accurate to the broad strokes of the Ragnarok myth as well, like the death of Baldur at the hands of a particular character, and everybody wants revenge, and it unleashes a bunch of stuff, and you're going to be fighting a giant wolf at some point. I'm promised. Fenrir is in here.
Well, you got sled dogs. You have a sled that you get around with.
So there's a lot happening here. Cory Barlog did say that this is the end of the Norse saga.
He's not directing the game. No. Does that concern you at all?
No, because he seems to still be pretty involved.
Yeah, and the guy who's directing it has been working on the series forever.
Yeah. I mean, I do like Thor as like a gunslinger.
What's his line in this? Are you a calm and reasonable person?
Yeah, because I am.
That's a great line.
I also enjoy the controversy over Thor has been flying around.
Because he's not like Marvel Thor.
No, because he's they say he's fat, but really he's like he's a big, strong guy. Like that's what a big strong men look like. They're huge men. You know, they don't have six pack abs. Yeah. They have a foundation.
Right.
Also,
that's what I'm going to start calling my belly, my foundation.
That in old Japan, like samurai having that body type was considered like really attractive. Because
really?
A, it meant you had food to eat.
Well, women
B,
too.
And B, it meant you had that ground. You had to create
you were healthy.
You're healthy, but also you had to create like a strong center of gravity to sword fight. Like
wasn't it the Renaissance where portly women were considered attractive?
The idea of being rail thin, being the ideal of beauty, is actually a fairly recent thing that came around with the abundance of food, particularly carbohydrate and sugar food, that made people fat. And so for a while, being fat was a sign of success.
Right, because it meant that you could eat as much as you wanted. Yeah.
Yep.
It's pretty interesting.
The society will always be attracted to the thing that's hard to get.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and and Thor. I mean, that is also what Thor looks like in the myths, like in the old myths, like that. He's a big, huge dude who drinks and eats whole goats. Like he does not look like Chris Hemsworth. Also, in the original myths, the Mjolnir is small, and he rubs it, and it gets bigger.
Oh,
so you can interpret that metaphor however you like.
However you want. So the setup for this game, for God of War Ragnarok is approaching. The world is starting to freeze, thus the sled dogs. Atreus his abilities are starting to become more potent. He has new runic summons. They show in one clip him riding like this celestial like deer. And he had those abilities in the last game, but it looks like they're a lot more robust this time. One of the new abilities that they showed for Kratos is the ability to grapple to ledges. But it appears there's still no jump. How do you feel about that?
I didn't really miss it.
I didn't either, but a lot of God of War fans are.
I mean, it's not that kind of God of War game.
I know.
And I was fine with not having the jump. The same way I'm fine not having the jump in Zelda.
Yeah, but instead they gave you the ability to grapple to ledges, which should help with traversal a lot.
Or at least opens up a lot of new avenues for that.
Yeah. They didn't announce a release date for this, though, did they?
Nah, still just next year.
Just next year. I mean, based upon everything that's coming Q1.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is your holiday.
This is
your holiday
Q4.
Bomb.
Yeah, and I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Give them as much time as they want to polish this up. I was a little surprised that they didn't show.
Looks like a good winter game.
Yeah, it is. I was a little surprised they didn't show more advanced combat stuff. Like changes from the last game.
Well, you gotta leave something for the next year. I mean,
you're right.
They got a year of hype to build.
They
here,
do.
So.
They have a whole year of marketing to get through still, so they're saving some stuff, I'm sure. They did show some new shields and some stuff like that, but mostly the combat, most of the stuff is stuff that we saw in the 2018 game.
Yeah, just expansions on the Chaos Blades and his axe.
Yeah, and the Chaos Blades, they show some shots where he doesn't have them. So I'm wondering if he like ditches them again.
Maybe.
And
I mean, he's not a fan.
Right.
So.
Yeah, well, he hid them in the last game. They were hidden in, like, the subboards of his house or whatever. You have to, like, uncover them late in the game.
Yeah, they represent...
And don't give me any crap about spoilers. This game is 3 years old now.
3 years old, yeah.
But, yeah, they're not on his back for most of this trailer, so there's certainly something going on there. It looks like Atreus is going to be a much bigger part of this, just in general.
Oh, yeah.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah, I mean, he was fine.
Yeah.
And like the way the first game ended, like, yeah, he's clearly the central question of this game, because he has a traditionally large role to play in Ragnarok, and I imagine Kratos is not super thrilled by that. Not that Kratos knows the Ragnarok myth, but like the myth indicates that Atreus will need to do some things that Kratos would definitely not approve of.
And there's already in this trailer the conflict of Kratos being the father, and there's one scene where he says you need to be a general and not a father, and Kratos bristles at that. So that same dynamic between father and son is going to be there, which I really loved about the last one. It's looking great. I do feel like it's kind of like God of War 1.5 in some ways.
Yeah, but that's okay when it's God of War is one of the best things around.
It is. And I do hope that we get another one.
I don't need you to break the wheel and remake it every time.
Yeah. But I do hope that before the end of the PlayStation 5, we do get another one that's built just for
I think
PS5.
we will.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be a different pantheon. Egypt, please. Although that probably going backwards. I don't know. I don't know why Egypt would show up in the middle of the Dark Ages.
Yep.
I don't know. Just have him fight Jesus.
Just get it over with.
Get over with. Just get on with it.
Yep. Okay, we need to move on to the next game from this amazing PlayStation Showcase, and that is Marvel's Wolverine. Also, by the way, God of War 2018 coming to PC. We should mention that before we move on. Next up, Marvel's Wolverine from Insomniac. This was a shocker.
Yeah, this was like, Insomniac, calm down. What are you doing? Like, just cranking out. How many, what is that, going to be like 5 games in the space of 4 years?
Is there a better investment than what Sony spent on Insomniac?
No.
There isn't. It's, wow. Getting their money's worth and then
also,
some.
if you need more proof that the X-Men are coming to the MCU.
Right. There you go.
They're doing a Wolverine game.
Yeah.
And that, who knows? I mean, this is probably going to be 2024, 2025.
Yeah.
But, like, the fact that this is even in process and it looks like it's probably going to be M-rated.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's going to be M-rated, but they did say it was going to be edgy. And
I think it
dark.
will. You've already have red blood in this trailer, and it had an age gate, and Spider-Man 2 did not.
Okay.
So I think this is going to be an M.
Okay. That's a good sign. When do you think 2024?
It's going to be definitely after Spider-Man 2. This is super early.
Have you heard any rumblings about this from just you being interested in the other MCU stuff?
Nope.
No.
This was a complete surprise to me. I had no idea no idea this was happening.
Okay.
But they did say early days, so I'm thinking this is 2024 at the earliest, which should sync up to about the time they're going to start pushing X-Men ideas for the movies.
Okay.
So we'll see. As I understand it, a major X-Men character will be popping up in Doctor Strange 2.
Oh.
At least briefly.
Okay.
So we're gonna start seeing some stuff moving forward with this, and of course, Phase 4 ends with Fantastic Four.
Right.
So who knows? Like this, it's an exciting time for the MCU. Which you wouldn't think you'd be able to say right after they finish their big storyline, but they're taking it places.
Yep.
Shang-Chi was great.
Yeah. Next up, Gran Turismo 7. They announced the release date for that, March 4th, 2022. Are you any more interested in this after this trailer?
No.
No?
I never need to play a Gran Turismo game again.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
What I discovered from this...
Everybody else can do what they like with it, but I don't...
What I discovered as far as fans are concerned with this trailer is that it teases all kinds of old elements of Gran Turismo games that have disappeared over the years and are being reintroduced for Gran Turismo 7. We also got a ton of details about it. There's going to be 420 cars at launch. License tests are going to be there. The used car lot from Gran Turismo 4 is going to return. The Gran Turismo Cafe is like this new feature that's like side quests where you collect groups of cars and then use those groups of cars in races to get more cars for the group. There's more customization options. There's dynamic time and weather system using data from NASA. And then one of the more popular features from the last GT is the photo mode. And there are going to be 3,000 scenes for the photo mode. Do you remember that from the last game?
Yeah.
How you just park the car in front of like the beach or whatever. There's going to be 3,000 different scenes for photo mode. But I'm there with you, Matt. Like I don't know what it's going to take to really reinvigorate my interest in Gran Turismo. And look, people hate us when we talk about this. There are a lot of Gran Turismo fans out there.
Sure, go ahead. Don't make me play it.
Yeah, it does look great.
Oh, it looks amazing. But it's like Gran Turismo has always been sterile and kind of blah to me.
Yeah.
And I would rather play Forza.
Yep. A lot of people disagree with us on that, but I'm sticking to my guns on that one.
Yeah, well, I didn't grow up with Sony. I grew up with stuff before Sony, and I don't have any particular loyalty to this series.
I don't either.
So
yeah,
I have chosen the one that appeals more to me. Suck it.
I like it. But I will say this. It looks good. Gran Turismo 7 looks good. So if you are a GT fan, I think you're going to be stoked.
I only have so much room in my life for games where I drive imaginary cars around real-life tracks, and if I decide to do that, I will probably do it in Forza Motorsport, whatever it is, 8. Or
one of the biggest turnoffs for me with Gran Turismo is the grinding that's involved.
Yeah,
the credits that you need to buy cars it's just insane.
Oh yeah, and the instant you say license test to me, I was like, I remember
a lot
that.
Of people bristle at
I didn't miss that,
but a lot of people love them. That's kind of one of the key elements of Gran Turismo,
and they are welcome to them.
Yep.
But I'm going to be over on Forza, where they just like shower you with cars. And let you play the damn game.
And let you pick which ones you want to drive. Yeah, I agree. I'd like the unlocks way better. I like the atmosphere and the tone way better in Forza. So yeah. Next up, as we mentioned, Marvel's Spider-Man 2. This is a trailer that people were like, oh, that's CG. And as it turns out, this is not. This is running in real time on PlayStation 5 hardware.
But you can tell from some of the smoke there.
You can.
It is real. There are real-time telltale
damn,
signals. Yeah.
But damn, dude.
No question.
What are we going to see in like 3 years on these consoles?
And I also just want to say Tony Todd as Venom, Candyman.
Yep.
Genius casting.
Venom plays a big part.
Flawless casting.
Venom plays a big part in this. We don't know whether he's friend or foe yet, though.
We will see.
Yeah. What do you think?
Probably both ways. I mean, probably going to start as a foe and kind of
become ally by the
somewhat,
end.
Not ally, but like there's going to be some misunderstandings. Also because the trailer is setting up the two major villains, which is Venom and Kraven. Because you're supposed to think it's Kraven that's going to come out of the shadows there because he's the one narrating this.
Yeah.
And then Venom pops out, and you're like, oh, because Venom was teased at the end of the first game. That was definitely, where they're going with this. Kraven being brought in probably by Jonah, I would think. Like that tends to be a thing. It's an interesting, mesh of like Kraven is basically like kind of a peak human sort of like. He's a guy. He's just a really good hunter, basically. Whereas Venom is the kind of the pinnacle of like weird at this point in Spider-Man's. Because the first game was kind of about the spider villains arising who were beyond just the normal sort of like tech science villains. Like he'd fought the Rhino, he'd fought Electro, he knew about all these guys, but like people like Doc Ock, like that was a different level. He was starting to have things work on a different level. People that were close to, Doc Ock was one of his friends and mentors. Like the first Insomniac Spider-Man game was kind of about being Spider-Man getting personal for Peter.
I didn't realize that the animatronic legs were actually in the prior Spider-Man game. I don't know how I never got to use them. Like those crazy animatronic legs that Spider-Man has in this trailer. Like
the Iron Spider stuff? Yeah, they were in one of the suits.
You had to have like one specific suit.
Yeah,
I guess I never got it.
The Iron Spider suit from Infinity War.
Yeah, I guess I never got it. So I didn't know that, but it's making a return here. It is single player only, despite the fact that both Miles and Peter Parker are in the game. However, it is set after Miles Morales. Miles has new electric venom powers, which he did have in the prior game, but he has new ones. The Hand is supposed to be the big bad organization in this
Ninjas,
one. Do you think that's accurate?
Maybe. I mean, the Hand is a big deal in the kind of the street level stuff. I also expect to see them pop up in upcoming. I think a lot of this does sort of tie in with what might be happening in the other media. Might also give an opportunity to bring Daredevil in because Daredevil's very identified with that stuff. Also, the Hand has a mystical element, which would kind of match well with like Kraven being sort of a peak human using tech thing. Venom is sort of a he's a science thing gone wrong in this. He's not an alien costume so much, but who knows where they're going to go with the symbiote thing. And you've got mystical ninjas running around. Like it provides the first game did kind of like have a bunch of different things running parallel. So I could see those as sort of feeling different enough to sort of complement each other. Certainly in the way that like in the first game you knew when you were fighting like escapee thugs versus like Silver Sable's people versus and like with this I can see if you're fighting like little symbiote monsters versus fighting like Kraven's guys, and maybe you'll be punching tigers or something, who knows, versus fighting like magic ninjas. Like that's going to be very different fights. So I can see that being an element.
Okay.
I just hope that you don't make me sneak around slowly with non-superhero characters too much, because going back to the first Spider-Man, it really the game does bog down a bit on the Mary Jane and Miles sequences.
Agreed.
Where you're just sort of walking through areas and sneaking around. Miles, they seem to have learned their lesson on that because Miles Morales doesn't have any of that. So we'll see. But also wondering if they'll bring Gwen Stacy in.
Okay. As a testament to how massive this event was for PlayStation, this next game would have brought down the house in any other event. And it was just kind of a side note in this one, and that is a remake of KOTOR, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And here's the crazy part. It's being remade for PS5 and PC. Remember, it was an Xbox exclusive at one time.
Console, yeah.
And EA and BioWare have nothing to do with it.
No,
How does that work?
It's Aspire. Aspire has...
Aspire. That makes me a little nervous.
I mean, they did the updates of KOTOR 1 and 2 recently. Like, they know what they're doing.
It's different, though, I think.
What?
like building a brand new game from scratch versus updating something.
It's not like the people at BioWare built KOTOR.
Yeah.
Those people are gone.
Yeah.
So you might as well.
How did that happen, though? How did EA and BioWare lose any sort of control over...
They don't own that game. Lucasfilm does. Lucasfilm.
Oh, okay. So Lucas kept ownership of that.
Lucasfilm can do whatever the hell they want with their Star Wars games, yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I figured that EA had some kind of ownership over it. No.
As far as I know, Lucas was always very particular about, like, this is work for hire. You are making this for us.
Okay.
I don't know what the deal is with, like, the EA stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Certainly, if you're doing a remake, I would imagine that they don't. If you're re-releasing the original game, I think you probably do. It's at least simpler probably to go through EA than pay them off for it or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to remake it, I don't think they have any claim to that IP at all. Like you can have whoever you want make a remake of KOTOR.
It is interesting that it's going to be a PlayStation exclusive after
it was an Xbox. Well,
Sony's
funding some of it,
right?
So it's. Real interest. Like there's it seems to be pretty early days. I would imagine.
They're saying like they said it's a long ways off.
Yeah.
However, 2023 would be the 20th anniversary of KOTOR.
Yep. I think that would be their target.
Seems like it makes sense, but
they're
just getting started now. I don't know.
They're not getting started. They've done a lot of pre-production stuff on it, so they might be just getting started on full tilt production. But they have definitely been spending the time, even when they were remastering the original two games, thinking about. They said in an interview like they're thinking about what makes it KOTOR, what do people want from it, what would an update look like? Oh yeah, I do think the combat will be substantially different. I think you are going to at the very least be looking at something that's something akin to how Dragon Age Inquisition plays. Mm-hmm. Maybe not full action, but like less turn-based with real time with pause and more like action with choices to be made kind of thing. You know what I mean?
The only thing we got, by the way, is 17 seconds, just a teaser trailer.
I mean, I think this makes a lot of sense to believe they are targeting it for like late 2023, which might slip to 2024. Mm-hmm. But that would be my guess.
Okay.
At any rate, awesome, great.
Yeah.
Currently, they're saying it's still
a shocker.
Currently, they're saying it's still not canon.
Really?
Under the new canon. However, that would make it the first. That would make it the first new product put out under the Disney era that is not canon, that is not labeled with the Legends sub-brand.
Okay.
And also, they several of the animated things, including Rebels and the Mandalorian to some degree is not animated, but like they have referenced stuff that happened in the KOTOR games and the lore surrounding KOTOR. Like they're not canon, but they might as well be. And in fact, I hate to bring up Rise of Skywalker. But in the backstory, in the visual guide and stuff, the Emperor has a bunch of Sith legions that are all named after ancient Sith lords, and there is a Revan legion. So Revan is canon. They're
trying to work it in.
They'll get there. I mean, there's a couple years left before they need to make that call or not, and it would not surprise me at all if right before it's like, yes, we are recanonizing the events of Revan and KOTOR and everything.
Okay.
That would be my guess.
Next up, a game that actually has been shown before, but it just kind of reemerged in this event. It's a game called Project Eve. It looks pretty darn good. It appears to me to be like a Bayonetta DMC-like clone. It is interesting that they showed this, though, because it is coming to all platforms. It's not a PlayStation console exclusive. I don't know if they've locked down a timed exclusive on it, maybe, on console.
I don't know.
But it is interesting that
I didn't even remember this was a thing.
Yeah. There's already been a couple trailers for it, but they kind of went under the radar. Obviously, when something like this appears in a PlayStation event, it's going to be shoved to the forefront. People are going to start paying attention to it. But yeah, I don't think that there's actually a console exclusive on this at all. Maybe Sony was just like, we need to show that some of the third-party stuff that looks good is also coming to our platform. But I think that mission's been accomplished by the actual third parties anyway. But we haven't really got like an over-the-top hack and slash Bayonetta for quite a while.
No, I mean Bayonetta 3 is like 6 years late at this point.
Yeah. What's up with that game?
Who knows?
What is going on with that game?
I don't know. The woman who voices Bayonetta implied on Twitter that she isn't voicing her in this.
What?
Yeah.
You think it's canceled?
I don't know.
I mean, I know recently Platinum said it wasn't.
Yeah.
But Matt, It was announced before the Switch
came out. Yeah.
And the Switch is about ready to get sent out to the pasture.
It's kind of like the last thing left. Now that when Shin Megami Tensei comes out.
That's the last one.
The only thing left from that initial... actually Metroid Prime 4.
Right.
It was also in that.
Or at least we have an explanation for that.
I hope you didn't buy the Switch for the stuff you saw in that presentation because, wow.
You're still waiting.
You're going to be waiting for the next one.
It is crazy. This looks pretty good, though. I was pleasantly surprised by this game.
Yeah.
But again, it is multi-platform. But it is filling a niche that...
It does feel like something that would be on PlayStation.
Yeah.
It looks...
How long has it been since the last Devil May Cry at this point? 3 years? 2 years?
I want to say 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah. Beginning of, was it beginning of 2019?
Sounds about right.
For 5?
Yeah. So I guess about 2
and they did like they did the next gen updates and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So it sounds about like 2 years, but we're due.
2-3
years.
If
we're not going to get the next Bayonetta for Switch, then this looks like it could fill the void nicely. Next up, a game that I've been confused about for quite a while, but this trailer made it much more clear about what's going on. It is a game called Forspoken. It was called Project Athia at first, before they finally gave it the full title. It's a Square Enix game. It is being developed by Luminous Productions, which will make you very happy, Matt, because do you know what that team is?
Yeah, it's being written by Amy Hennig.
Well, that's the part you'll like, but I was being facetious, because the game is actually being developed by the Final Fantasy 15 team.
Uh-oh.
And I know how much you love that game, so I just wanted to put it on your radar.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, being written by someone who knows how words work will probably help it. Like, I like what I see here. Although it looks like... part of the reason I like what I see is it looks like a spiritual successor to Infamous.
You know what it reminds me of a little bit? Is DMC, Devil May Cry.
Mm-hmm.
The one that was made by Ninja Theory.
Yeah.
Because you have, like, this hipster dude who kind of... He has, like, headphones, and, like, he's kind of from present day, and he gets transported to this strange world.
Yeah, it's an isekai.
And this is this... Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. That's a phrase for it in Japan. And that's what this is. You're this girl who lives in, like, Brooklyn who gets...
With a really excellently modeled cat, and I'd like to know who's taking care of the cat while she's in the fantasy world.
Yeah, she's transported from New York City to the nightmarish fantasy world of Athia. And her task while she's there is to eliminate the all-powerful matriarchs known as the Tantas.
She has ended up with Shang-Chi's 10 rings somehow on her arm, and they let her do magic stuff.
Yeah, well, so her bracelet is an actual character.
Yeah, he's Jarvis.
He's named Cuff.
Yeah, but he sounds like Jarvis.
Right.
He's basically Jarvis from Iron Man. Like that's the inspirations are not subtle in this so far.
I mean, isn't that kind of Japanese development in a nutshell right now?
Sorta, but like. I don't know. I mean, I think this looks cool. Like I'm definitely interested in.
I'm pleasantly surprised by this game. It looks already better than Final Fantasy 15 to me.
Oh yeah, I mean,
the combat alone.
Dental appointments that look better than that to me.
The combat, the setting is just all way more interesting than Final Fantasy 15. But as I said, you do have a bracelet named Cuff as your companion, and it talks to you. Mm-hmm. It provides kind of the commentary while you play through it, which. We got that, and It Takes Two, and it was not a good thing. But in this game, hopefully it is. As you can see, there's lots of platforming, parkour. There's a little bit of Spider-Man tossed in there. And as Matt alluded to a couple minutes ago, it is being worked on by Gary Whitta and Amy Hennig. So there's some pedigree that's getting piled in here. At least the story and the writing and the storytelling should be pretty good. And it looks like the action's not too bad either. I'm not going to... Just assume that's the case, though, because I played Final Fantasy 15.
Oh,
so.
Yeah.
That looked like it might play well.
Yeah, it looked interesting. You're going to need to put that in my hands. But,
and then you played it. So, yeah, I have some hope for this. I think it looks pretty good. Yeah. It definitely looks unique. There's nothing else like it on the market. This is also coming in spring of 2022.
Yeah, this is way further along than I thought it was.
Dude, next spring is just going to be a smorgasbord of awesome. And you're right. A lot of this stuff is end up going to get delayed till Q3, Q4. Some of it may end up going all the way to 2023. But right now, there's a very good chance that the early part of next year could be one of the best quarters, I think, in the history of gaming. Mm-hmm. And then next up, another big surprise, Alan Wake Remastered. Although maybe it wasn't that big of a surprise. There have been rumors floating around.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty obvious.
Alan Wake stuff for a while now. Do you think this is a smart project?
I don't know. Like, I'm interested because I like Alan Wake, but in terms of like, investment potential, like I don't know. I feel like you might be, just trying to get blood from a stone on this, but I'm not going to argue with it. I'll play it.
Yeah, it still doesn't look that good to me.
No,
like visually.
I mean, it's remastered, not remade, but it's a good story. Like it's.
I know Vincent tackled this for, I believe, Game Pass or Fail not long ago. He was not impressed with Alan Wake.
Yeah, I
wouldn't
be super willing to go back to it at this point, like the standard version. I don't know. I mean, I like seeing it kind of pop up in Control as like DLC, and I like the references to it and stuff.
I like that it's not dead. The IP, but playing the original again. I don't know.
This feels like a bit of a test balloon that may be doomed to not result in another project.
Yeah.
But that might be all they got budget for.
Yeah.
Or that anyone's willing to take a risk on.
It could be. And then a big disappointment because what was going to be the best-selling game of Q4 is now pushed into next year, and that is Grand Theft Auto 5 Next Gen. Mm-hmm. What the hell does Rockstar do? What does it do? So one of the questions on Pactor Factor in the last week is like, where are the new games from Rockstar? It is like given up developing new games.
Yeah, I don't know.
It couldn't peel itself away from GTA Online long enough to get the next gen version done for the holidays.
Nope.
Look,
that money's not going to count itself. So you're going to need to be patient.
It's insane, Matt. Can you think of another studio that's done this? I mean, Pactor brought up a good point. Back in like the PlayStation 2 era, Rockstar was released like 13 games in like a 2 or 3 year span.
Yeah, that's true.
Think about that.
When they would just release things like the ping pong game.
Yeah.
And like, you're just like, what was that?
Just because they had teams. What are these teams doing? They can't all be making hats for Grand Theft Auto. Like, they can't. I don't know what's going on there. It's insane. It's completely insane. Like, I even talked to my my worm at Rockstar when I was home over my vacation, and he has no idea either. So he's like, I don't know. He's like, they haven't called me for work for a long time. And I was like, yeah, I'm not surprised because they aren't working on anything.
There's nothing to do.
It's crazy, dude. But anyway, GTA 5 for PS5 and Xbox Series. And was this version coming to PC too? I'm guessing
I think it was everything, yeah.
Yeah. Delayed until next year. Also, to March 2022.
You'll just have to make do with the trilogy collection, I guess.
Dude, March 2022.
Which they still haven't admitted is a thing.
Even if half the things that are scheduled for March 2022 don't come out in that month, it's still going to be insane. Mm-hmm. This is just one platform we're talking about here. Think about what's going to happen on Switch, what's going to happen on Xbox and PC, and it's nuts, dude. It's going to be awesome. Next up, a game that I am just struggling to find interest in, Ghostwire Tokyo. This, by the way, is a Bethesda game that's a PlayStation exclusive. Another one that Xbox and Microsoft is going to have to sit back and watch its company release a second console exclusive for PlayStation. I mean, those deals were in place and all, and obviously Xbox knew before it bought Bethesda, but
and probably it's just like, it's fine, they won't sell anything.
Don't you find it odd, though, that Bethesda was doing all this exclusive work for PlayStation, and PlayStation didn't buy Bethesda? Instead, Xbox bought Bethesda.
I think Xbox just had the money to move faster on it.
I guess.
I mean, really certainly we know that they were at least in some kind of negotiation to do some sort of exclusive deal for Starfield.
Yeah.
That obviously did not happen because of the purchase. Sony was clearly interested in some way. Maybe they didn't have the capital to throw $4 billion at this thing, you know. But Microsoft does.
Yeah.
So that's probably the main deciding factor there, was just Microsoft could afford it.
Does this game interest you at all?
Not really. I mean, it just looks pretty generic, Japanese demon stuff. Although, like, the realistic art style it makes me interested. I don't know. Like, I need to see more of it, I guess.
I'm getting like a Death Stranding vibe off of this game.
A little bit. You know what it keeps reminding me of, just because of the first-person perspective, is Breakdown. You remember that game?
Yeah. The Xbox launch game, or close to launch.
It was up there. Yeah, it was pretty early, but it was like it was one of the first. It was Namco. It was like one of the first, like, Japanese developers are making Xbox exclusives kind of thing. It was
also
pretty
a
good.
First-person action game.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think I finished it.
Pleasantly surprised by that game back in the day.
So I kind of think of that when I see the little gameplay clips of here, which is not a negative thing, but I also sort of, I don't know, I think of that, and I think of like Mach-and X and like stuff like that, like the supernatural first-person stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't really know. It could go a bunch of different ways there.
It really could. It's also, I think it's been delayed once or twice already.
Yeah.
But it is being developed by Mikami Studio, Tango. Yeah. So maybe it'll be.
I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a chance. But I don't really know. I kind of agree that I don't really know what to think just by looking at this footage.
They haven't really explained it all that well either so far.
No.
It's like people are being possessed on the streets of Tokyo.
This is very Death Stranding.
Oh, yeah.
These it's probably just because of the lighting.
But even like the scene where he punches him and the black flies out of his back. There's a headless schoolgirl with a sword. I don't know what the hell's going on.
It's Tuesday. Right?
Yeah. And then the final announcement, which one of the smaller ones, but still a fairly big deal. Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection is also coming in early 2022 to PS5 and PC. So Uncharted is finally coming to PC, but it's not the whole collection. It's Uncharted 4 plus the Lost Legacy Expandalone, I think is what most people are calling it.
Yeah.
Which is great. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of people were expecting to get more Uncharted for PC than just.
Yeah, I think people were expecting the original 3 more than they were expecting 4 and Legacy.
Right. Yeah. Is it better that they're getting the latest one? Probably.
Maybe. I don't think so. I don't like 4. I like Lost Legacy, but I would certainly. I'm not going to buy that on PC. I will probably buy the collection on PS5 just to have them all on the same console.
Yeah.
Sure. I think I like all those games for the most part, except 4. I mean, and 4.
I like them all.
Like I don't like 4 for a number of reasons. I think I don't know if 1 holds up that well anymore. I have played 1 like 5 times.
Yeah,
so it's
back then.
And now, the most recent was definitely on PS4.
Oh yeah.
When they did that Uncharted collection for that, like I replay 1 and 2 every few years, really.
2. I mean, again, for its time, still just amazing.
Oh, yeah, that train sequence is still one of the most impressive things that anyone's ever done.
Yeah.
Certainly for the time. And I will say 2 they're all a little too long.
Yeah.
Especially on a replay.
Because the gameplay isn't that great.
Yeah, they run out of stuff to show you.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it's just like, okay, another bunch of under 10 guys going to run out and duck behind the waist-high walls, and now I got to wait for the head to come. I got to remember how the headshots work in this game because they don't work quite the way you think.
Helmets only holds on for so long. Yeah. It is rewarding at first.
Yeah,
but it doesn't last.
There is a point in those games where I'm just like, I'm just running at you, and I'm just going to do the combo, and you're all going to die. Like,
Sneaky just said Uncharted 4 is the best multiplayer game ever. Sneaky. Oh, Sneaky. What are you thinking, bro? Yeah, I don't know about that one. I did not enjoy the multiplayer in Uncharted really at all. I gave him a chance because for whatever reason, I can't even remember which one it was. I guess it was probably Uncharted 3. And there was a ton of people at Game Trailers that got into the multiplayer. Mm-hmm. And there were sessions happening after work every night. And I played like one night, and I was like, bro, this sucks. What are you guys doing spending your time on this?
My group played Uncharted 3's multiplayer for like a day. Yeah. And like the second day we started again, and finally someone was like, why are we doing this?
What are we doing?
And like,
it's weird.
We went back to something else.
That is the definition of shoehorning a multiplayer mode into a game. Because the combat isn't that good in the single player option.
And I never played.
Why would you make?
I never played 4's multiplayer.
Suite?
So
I did because I needed to evaluate the game, but like I didn't enjoy it. Sneaky, you're wrong on that one. Objectively wrong on that one. It's crazy. But Matt, one thing that is
I agree with Manny Dr. One. Or I forgot Uncharted 4 had multiplayer.
Yeah. Manny Dr. One. Yeah. Swanland, your health is literally a luck meter. And then Sneaky says, I completely disagree. Different strokes for different folks. But one thing I think we can all agree on is, holy cow, what a presentation this was for Sony. What do you think would have been the difference if they had done this at E3? Because they probably could have done it at E3.
Maybe.
Would the response have changed at all? So would Sony have won E3?
But who cares?
But would it?
Probably, but like winning E3 doesn't mean anything. So
I guess
like
it doesn't.
But
it definitely would have.
Yeah, but you do it now, and I don't think anything changes for them.
You had to spotlight it all to yourself. Although, look, I missed it.
Yeah.
Because it's the summertime, and I was out on vacation, and blah blah blah, and I don't know. Like,
you're still gonna buy all of it.
Well, yeah, of course. But look what I do. I mean, of course I'm gonna buy it all. I'm just wondering if there's lots of other people like me who are out and about doing fun stuff for summer and missed it and.
They'll get. I mean, again, all these things are so far out. There's like 14 different more chances.
Opportunity for them to get people excited for.
God of War Ragnarok is not going to come out quiet.
Yep. So anyway, there you go. That's the PlayStation Showcase for September 2021. We're a little late on it, but I had fun discussing it, and it's big stuff that we needed to get on the record about. And I can't wait to learn a lot more about pretty much all of these games. Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to talk next about WarioWare, Get It Together. I discussed this on our last episode, like 10 days ago or whatever, however long ago it was. I played a demo that was on the Switch eShop. Nintendo sent me the final version of the game, and I gave it a spin. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it because, I did discuss it. I really want to just discuss what is different from playing the final version of WarioWare versus what they gave you in the demo. And I will say this, Matt. I do like it more now that I've played the final version within the framework of how the game works versus how it worked in the demo. And there were a lot of details about the game that the demo really didn't give up at all. So we did know that there were a bunch of playable characters, which is completely different for any WarioWare game. Mm. That's never happened before. And I didn't realize just how robust that feature was. I also didn't realize when I played the demo version was that before you play every round of micro games, you choose the characters to play with through that round. And usually, like at the beginning, you pick 3, and as you get farther into the game, you end up picking up to 5. However, I also feel like it ends up becoming the game's kind of Achilles heel because what you find over time, and I will commend Nintendo and Intelligent Systems for this, and that is that there are dozens of characters in this game, and they all are different. They all do something different. But the problem is that I feel like in the quest to add so many characters that all did something different, that they failed to make them all interesting to play. So like 9-Volt, one of the characters, the only thing he can do is just he automatically moves side to side, bouncing off objects, and he just sends like a hook shot up. That doesn't work well for a lot of the mini games. But I'll say this, like somehow every micro game in this can be completed by every character in the game, which is amazing. Like technically, if you think about if you're a designer or you're a game developer, and that's a big project. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to have like 100 micro games, and we're going to have 20-some characters, and every one of those characters needs to be able to complete every one of those micro games. It's a feat, and they accomplish it. That doesn't mean it's fun. And what I've found is that you just pick the characters that can fly. Because there's a lot of micro games where like there's gaps and you have to like jump over. If you have a character that can fly, some of them you complete without even trying. And I will say this, that is a part of WarioWare. I thought half of the fun of playing the original WarioWare games was I just completed that micro game and I have no idea how I completed it. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of that to this, but ultimately what ends up happening is I ended up selecting like the same 5 or 6 characters for every micro game. And so you end up making this decision in your head. It's like, do I want to just make progress in this game? Or do I want to bend the knee and play the game the way Nintendo wants me to play the game by choosing all these other characters that, in all honesty, make the game much more difficult to complete? And what I end up defaulting to, and I think most people will default to, is like, no, I'm going to pick this handful of characters that are very versatile and will work across all the micro games instead of these ones that may work really well for one of them but really suck for the rest of them. And because it's random, the way that they throw the games at you, you do not know what the games are going to be. Well, roughly you do, because with each character there are certain micro games that are always going to be in their round. But for the most part, the games are thrown to you at random. So you just want characters that are versatile and that you know are going to be able to accomplish the micro games, more easily compared to a lot of the other ones that are a little more specialized. So I feel like its biggest design change from prior WarioWare games is not particularly successful. Just like all WarioWare games, for each round you get 4 fails. So if you fail 4 times, you have to start over, but you don't. You can spend 1,000 coins and pick up right where you left off. Not just the round where you left off, the exact micro game where you left off, including boss fights. So if you fail in a boss fight and you run out of all 4 of your attempts, and the way it works is there's like 10 games per round. When you first start, you have a lot of time to complete each micro game. As you go further, that time limit gets smaller and smaller until you get to the final micro game, which is a boss fight. Even the boss fights, you can use the 1,000 coins and try them over until you run out of coins. Coins are very easy to collect. In short, it's really just a means to an end. particularly if you're doing what I was doing, which was just selecting the characters that I was good with and I knew were versatile and I could complete a lot of micro games with. I was surprised at the presentation also in the final version of the game. Each character, as you unlock them, there is a story element to it, a little plot that plays along with like these animated cinematics that are very charming and very cool. The presentation in general was a lot more robust than what I saw in the demo, and I didn't anticipate that, to be perfectly honest with you. The structure of the main mode in the game is laid out kind of like a 2D Mario game. You guys probably saw that in the B-roll a little earlier. You have like a 2D map screen, and as you complete each round, you go back to the map screen, a new area unlocks, and it does eventually get to a point where the paths start to branch, and you can kind of pick and choose which round you want to do next. So again, tried and true design, and it works fine. The boss fights suck. I think it's kind of hard to create compelling boss fights in this,
especially when they have to be completable by all the characters.
Right. Yeah, and so they're awful. Like they're usually in most games they're the highlight. They're not. They're just another micro game in this. In all honesty, some of the worst micro games that are in the game. I think one thing I would say, reflecting on my time playing this, is it's another one of those games that reminded me that I'm old and that I have played all the WarioWare games, and that there are a lot of people who own a Switch who maybe never played a WarioWare game. And so I'm sitting here, I'm saying these older ones are better, this one isn't very good, but if you're 15 years old, even if you're 20-some years old, you probably never played the better WarioWare games. So I tried to look at it from the perspective of someone like that, who is like, what is this? Is they're just throwing these mini games at me? And I still feel like it falls short in that regard as well, because the mini games are just not as funny, they're not as charming, they're not as avant-garde. When you do get one of those, it's almost like a shock. Like there's this one where you just like wind a wheel and like Doshin the Giant comes out from the background, and like that made me laugh. I was like, oh wow, okay, that's what I'm talking about. There's not enough of that in this game, in my opinion. They fall back on plucking the hairs like they have, or like, nose humor, picking the nose, plugging the nose, stuff like that. And again, if you've never played any of these games, you may find that stuff amusing or funny. As someone who's played them all, they've kind of worn out their welcome at this point. I don't know. It's lost its ability to surprise for me. I don't know if that would be the case for people who are younger. But what I would say to those people is just go buy an old one. Go buy an old WarioWare game. I don't think Switch eShop has those, though.
They do. I haven't noticed.
Yeah, I don't think you could just go on the eShop. And
you might be able to get them on a 3DS.
Maybe.
I don't know what they have on there. I imagine at least the more recent ones would be on 3DS.
You'd think, but now the 3DS is kind of this legacy platform at this point. It's kind of done. So I guess I do have to kind of look at it from the perspective of most people aren't going to go buy an old system and find a WarioWare game to play this. Is this good enough for them?
But also, like, who doesn't have a 3DS?
Right. Yeah, you can get one for cheap, too, off of eBay if you want. But who's going to do that to play an old WarioWare? They're just not. And so I do think for those people, they're probably going to enjoy this game. They're not going to enjoy it for the money that they're asking for it. It's basically a full-price game, and you can complete it in, 2 hours. It's just not enough entertainment value for what they're asking. And as we know,
Nintendo's constant Nintendo problem these days.
It is. And as we know, Nintendo, it happened with Mario Golf, in fact.
Yeah.
It also had limited staying power. It's been a dry year for the Switch. It's just really struggled to have a couple games that can hold you and hold your interest for a long time. And they're not working with the player here. They're not offering these games at cheaper prices and cheaper discounts. Let me jump forward here because I'm almost done discussing this game. And that shows you how limited it is. But I do want to show you guys kind of like the Nintendo-themed micro games so you can see them. Those are always the ones that people want to check out. This was kind of a cool boss fight right here because it's a two-parter. First you have to unlock it, and then you have to use the physics of the water to get that creature up out of the water and up onto the ledge. I thought this was kind of cool, but it was the best boss fight of them all. So that tells you something. And here we'll jump forward to some of the Nintendo-based micro games, which I think are always the most interesting. There's a Donkey Kong Country one. I wish, honestly, the game had more of this type of stuff that drew on the nostalgia, because the ones that don't just aren't as interesting as the ones that used to be. I never figured out how to complete this one. It's like, what? But to me, that's the best part about this game, is when you see something and your brain can't comprehend it in the amount of time that you need to complete it. It's like you don't even mind failing. That's what is missing from this. I just found it. I just figured it out. That's what's missing from this. There aren't micro games where you're okay with failing because they were just so avant-garde and caught you off guard so much, or so interesting or funny or weird, that you're like, I'm cool missing that because now I get to try it again, and maybe I'll kind of figure out what it is this time when I try it. So, yeah, this is way overpriced for what it is. I think they took the wrong direction with this. I'll say this, though. I did not get to play this multiplayer, so I don't know how much that changes things. I do wish that I had done that, because that is the other big new feature for this, is that you can play it with another person, and I probably should have tested that out, but I can't imagine that it would add enough staying power to the game to where it would make it worth what they're asking for.
It seems like you're playing the wrong character for this one.
This is my point. So they force you to use this character on this one. You can't choose another character, and it's annoying, but they have built the level in a way that you can use this character and you can get through it. And again, that's kind of part of the genius of how they designed the game, but that doesn't make it fun or compelling or worth the full price that they're asking for the game. So WarioWare, get it together. Another not complete miss, but kind of a miss on Switch. It just has not been a strong year for software on the platform.
Yeah. Hoping that doesn't continue to be true in 2 weeks.
Why?
Because that's when Metroid Dread comes
Dread's
out.
Coming. And I'm going to get my Switch OLED here soon.
I need Metroid Dread to be good.
That's what, October 8th?
8th, yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. Me too, man. Like, it needs a good game for this year. I know Switch in a lot of ways just keeps getting by on, it still has The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it still has Super Mario Odyssey. And I'll say this, I was home on vacation, my nephew came over, and he has a Switch, and he had Super Mario Odyssey, and he is still playing it. Because there are so many moons. And he's like, you're the expert. He's only 7. He's good, first of all. Like, he's mastered all the expert techniques in that. Like, using the hat to do, like, the crazy long jumping. He can do all of it. And he came to me, he's like, you're the expert. You do this. Like, get me, like, my last, like, 25 moons that I haven't got yet. I couldn't get them. Because they're, like, the hardest ones in the game. And I was like, I'm sorry, bro. Like, I could get them if I sat here all day. I'm not doing that. It's like, you get them. You're 7, man. This is your job.
You're the one who has all the time in the world.
Exactly. Even though I was on vacation at the time. But look, so there is value to that. There are people who are still playing Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey. But, man, if you've owned a Switch the whole time, it's really slim pickings right now. And Metroid Dread cannot get here soon enough, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah. And even that, as a Metroid fan, I'm still kind of like, $60, huh?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I'll pay it because it's Metroid, but like,
a little dicey.
Their pricing structure at this point is a little.
Yeah. They have gotten a little better about discounting their games, but still,
but not soon enough, and not. I mean,
cheap
look.
Enough.
I feel like Metro. I mean, it's a 2D. I mean, I love Metroid. I'm very excited for a new Metroid. I think that should be $50.
Yeah, I'd agree. But it's the first Metroid in quite a while, and people are going to buck up
and
pay it.
I mean,
we're going to do it.
Yeah, it's not like they're not going to get my money for it.
Every one of you are going to do it, too.
Yeah.
Just
we are all the problem.
We are the problem. Well, it's one of the recent questions on Pactor Factor was, does voting with your wallet really matter?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't.
Not really.
Because we're all weak.
Yeah, well, also, like, sometimes, where's the message come from? Is it, the Diablo thing, like I'm like, I don't really feel good doing that. Like
are you going to buy Diablo 2?
Well, I've talked to a couple of my friends from Blizzard, and they're sort of like, look, if you don't buy it, it doesn't do anything but hurt us.
Well, it's also
who aren't the ones who did, the people who were responsible for all that shit. Like that's in the hands of the California courts, basically, and all we saw had a legal left resigned yesterday. So everything's going great, but I don't know. Like I'm torn. I may get it. Like I've the people I know at Blizzard have all kind of universally said, like, look, like, not buying it or buying it doesn't really, not buying it doesn't really do anything but hurt Vicarious Visions, and Vicarious Visions was not part of this.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. Vicarious Visions is the studio developing it.
Yeah,
and they have no fault in any of the stuff that's happening.
So I'm gonna have to. I'll think about it.
It's tough,
but like,
it's really tough.
And of course the other side of that is like,
are you guys buying it? Are you guys gonna buy Diablo 2 Resurrected? Put it in
the
chat.
other side, like, I looked at the promo stuff and stuff on PlayStation. Like, God, that Blizzard logo is nowhere. Like it says, there's the Blizzard, little Blizzard in regular text for the intro and a few seconds in the trailer, but there is no Blizzard logo anywhere. And you used to see like it was Diablo and the Blizzard logo on the chest. Like they were trumpeting that Blizzard made that game.
Yep.
And it's gone now. It's interesting.
Is chat gonna buy it? Case of Money says no buy on Blizzard. Vincent says first party games are generally on sale in the eShop for a third off. You're right. We mentioned that like they're getting better with their discounts, but they're almost always digital. It's hardly ever physical that you get discounts on. Let's see. Shuffle Scrub, what's Blizzard? First time chat from viewer. What's up, Shuffle Scrub? Welcome to GameFace, man. We're here every Tuesday from 1 to 4 Pacific. Come on back. How many people saying no are actually going to get it? That's the other thing. Some people may not admit that, they may say, "Oh, I'm not buying it," and then in the dark of the night they decide.
Well, like a lot of people saying they already pre-ordered before all the stories broke. So. And it's very hard to get your money back from Sony, particularly if you've pre-ordered something.
Erebus Jones says, I pre-ordered it for the D3 bonuses, Diablo 3 bonuses, before the story broke. Yeah. Jamry99, I pre-ordered. I tried to return it by calling Sony 3 times, and I was on hold for hours. So I gave up and sadly will buy it, though I don't support the company. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be in that position where this news just broke too late, and you guys are already committed your money, and it's hard to get refunds on that stuff. Yeah. Juan X Solo says on this chat, why would you lie on this chat? Because you're still a person. Some people are here every week on the show. I think everyone in our chat knows each other. Like, they have a reputation to uphold. But at the end of the day, they can do whatever they want and we'll never know. That's the bottom line. So people can come on here and say, nope, I'm not supporting them, and go buy it. And it's not like we'd be any of the wiser. So why would you ever pre-order a digital game? I will never understand, Veritas. I'd agree with that. I don't know why. There's no point.
Yeah, my only reason to do that is I forget that something comes out.
Oh.
And so if I like sometimes I'll be, oh, wait, that came out today? Oh, I missed the pre-order bonus or whatever.
Yeah.
I like having the pre-order bonuses.
Yep.
So that's usually, I usually do it like the week before or the day of or something. But like sometimes I do forget. I was like, I forgot Deathloop came out. I don't know if there are any pre-order or anything with that, but like I didn't play that until like 5 days after it came out because I saw people talking about it on Twitter. I'm like, I just sort of, for some reason, I figured it was like people were talking about like early review things or whatever, and I was like, oh, that game came out like 3 days ago? Okay, I guess I got to play that.
I think a lot of people may be doing that with Kena today. They may not realize it's coming out today.
That I did pre-order ahead of time because I was looking forward to that.
Well, there's no physical version of that game until November.
I actually bought Kena the same time I bought Deathloop. Oh, okay. So, which was still a pre-order for Kena at the time. Yeah. I was like, as long as I'm here.
Yeah. There's no physical version until November.
November, yeah.
I don't know why. Why would you do that?
I don't know.
Why wait till November for the physical version?
I mean,
obviously Christmas is there and you can generate sales, but you can generate sales the whole time.
You might generate more by just being on the shelf at that time period, and you're probably, if you don't...
if you're new, then maybe you'll get shelf space, whereas if releasing now...
Meanwhile, you're going to be like 3 months old.
That's a good point. Okay, it's time to move on. We're going to talk next about... Wait, do I have my rundown correct? Oh, I do. We're going to talk next about the little console that couldn't, the Nintendo GameCube. It is Matt, can you believe this? The 20th anniversary of the Nintendo GameCube.
You know what's 10 years old today?
What?
Dark Souls.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Not even Demon Souls. Dark Souls is 10 years old today. I read an article the other day
about... It's not just us who thinks as we're getting older, time goes faster. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not... It's, like, been studied and, like...
I, however, do not believe the thing where some people say, oh, if you live to be 1,000 years old, like a decade would feel like it took like 5 minutes. I'm like, no, I think there's a threshold.
Yeah, I think there's a point of diminishing returns.
Because believe me, even though I do have that sensation about things sometimes, there are days that take forever.
Yes,
like it's still
there's still days that
time can still crawl just fine. I promise.
It was interesting. So I was getting ready to go home for my vacation, and I have a shoulder bag. I have literally had, where is it? Oh, I can't even bring it on. My best friend and my best man for my wedding, back before I moved from Philly, and I think it was actually my parting gift when I left Philly to come out to California 20-some years ago, he bought me a shoulder bag. I still use that shoulder bag. Matt, it's the same shoulder bag that I used at Tech TV. I used it at G4. I used it at Game I still use it. And so, anyway, and it's a polo bag, by the way. It's 20-some years old, and it's still holding up. So if you need a good shoulder bag, I can vouch for Polo. But anyway, I was cleaning everything out of it because, you're going to go through security, and you're just like, I don't want to get hassled if there's like a knife in here or whatever, if I've hidden a gun in there. I don't have guns in my bag. Anyway, I was just cleaning it out, and I found my business card from GameSpot, the last one that I had, and it said GameCube and GBA editor on it.
Wow.
That was from literally GameSpot did that for 5 months. It tried to be like IGN because IGN always had editors
sections
that were assigned just so Matt Casamassina, he did
was
Nintendo.
The Nintendo.
Yep. Yeah. And Doug Perry, he did PlayStation and so they had people.
Some poor sad sack had to do Sega.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did actually. There was a Sega channel and they had two people that worked on it. And GameSpot at a certain point was like IGN starting to take the lead on us, and they're like, "Well, why is that happening?" And they thought it was because they had people assigned to each platform, and people became fans. It was actually
because GameSpot's site sucked. Comparison.
It was terrible compared to IGN, but IGN's wasn't great back then either.
No, but it was more usable.
Yeah, right. And GameSpot's was like a database.
Yeah,
it wasn't like a
it was very hard to find what I wanted.
It was, yeah. But they thought it was because people like Matt Casamassina were building fans. They felt like really they were kind of the first influencers or whatever. And so GameSpot decided, we're going to start assigning people to platforms because before I got there, I was running a GameCube and Dreamcast website, fan site. They're like, well, we'll put Shane on Nintendo because we also had Ricardo there who was like world's biggest Sega fan. So he was on the Sega beat and they put me on the Nintendo beat. It only lasted for like 4 months or whatever. But interesting anecdote. I was GameSpot's one and only Nintendo editor. The only one that they ever had. And then when I left there, they trashed the whole concept and went right back to the way that they had done things all along. And the rest is history. So anyway, I do have an affinity for GameCube and the GBA. Because it was also the only time in my career that I was handed a beat where it was like, okay, this is what you're doing, Shane, go after it. And I did go after it. It was crazy, dude. I would call, every news story, I would get in there in the morning, every news story that came out, I would call the publishers and try to get quotes. Because I came out of journalism school. That's what I thought I was supposed to do. And it worked. I would get quotes from Perrin Kaplan on Nintendo stuff that she wasn't supposed to share, and then she'd call me later on and be like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that." I'm like, "Too late, honey. It's already up and it's running." I got some quotes out of them I got quotes out of her from when Rare left that she shared stuff she wasn't supposed to share. It worked, but it's crazy. I would get in there and it would just be a press release, and I would call Sony. I'd be like, "Hey, I'm looking for a quote about this," and they'd be like, "People don't normally do this," and I'm like, "But I'm doing it now, so you need to give me a quote." Or I'm going to say that you refuse to give me a quote, which will look bad. And it worked. So anyway, I do have an affinity for the GameCube. How do you feel about GameCube, Matt? When I first say it, what comes to mind for you?
Rogue Squadron.
Rogue Squadron.
Launch, one of the best launch games of all time. Rogue Leader.
Yeah. Certainly with the most technically stunning launch games of all time, one of them.
I mean, I think I do like some stuff on it. I think it was more powerful than anyone gave it credit for. I think it's probably the most raw power of all three of them.
Yeah,
generation,
which it never got credit.
for. I think of the three consoles of that gen, the GameCube stuff still looks the best if you hook it up to a HDMI thing,
or if you play Dolphin.
Yeah,
use the emulator.
There's some really gorgeous,
which you
some
should
really
only
gorgeous
use
texture work
with backup games that you own. By the way, people.
And you don't want to steal sales from a 20-year-old console.
I'm just covering my ass, Kyle.
But no, I think in general. I think it was a good system. I didn't get a lot of stuff on it. Primarily, it was mostly for exclusives, as Nintendo systems tend to be. But there's a lot of good things on there, and a lot of good things that hold up in ways that other stuff from that gen don't. Certainly, I think Metroid Prime and Eternal Darkness and
Prime 2
and the Primes
Echoes.
And Rogue Leader. Some of those weird things, the Lost Kingdom games were weird.
Oh yeah,
hidden
I forgot
gems.
about those. Yeah,
that kind of stuff. There's a lot of good stuff on there. I still have a lot of GameCube games on the shelf, even out front of the shelf to be accessible should I want to play them. I do have a converter box, the converter box that lets me do the digital out, do the progressive scan through into an HDMI cable to go straight to the plasma. That looks great. I have put effort and time into making the GameCube playable on my modern setups. So
I have not lost interest in that console.
Yeah.
I have not taken my PS2 out of its box in 15 years. I have not taken my original Xbox out of its box in 15 years. I just, not even a year ago, got out my GameCube and was like, does it still work? And it did still work.
Yeah. F-Zero, last time we got to do that.
Yeah. Literally the last time we got to do that was on GameCube. What do you think is the system's lasting legacy, Matt? To me, it's going to be the last Nintendo console where Nintendo got third-party support, legitimate third-party support.
Yeah, it was the last time Nintendo was competitive alongside the others. After this with the Wii, Nintendo decided to start playing their own game.
This was the last console before the Blue Ocean strategy.
Yeah, which basically worked. So but and it was the closest. I think when people complain about, including me, wanting a Nintendo sequel or a Nintendo game, just make another Zelda, just give me another Metroid. They're thinking about the GameCube era when that was still a thing that happened.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't like everything, they did make another Kirby, they made another Star Fox, they made another Metroid, they made another Metroid Prime, they made. There was some really legitimate stuff on there. Even Star Fox Adventures is kind of the last rare open
underrated
thing.
That was really Rare's last Nintendo project.
Yeah, of note.
Yeah.
And there's some weird, there's a lot of oddities on there that I think maybe they're not great, but they sort of hold up better than the oddities on maybe the PS2.
Double Dash is the worst Mario Kart, though, I think.
Geist.
Geist, that's right, yeah.
Well, certainly the only game I can recall where I played as a bowl of dog food, if only briefly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff, and
Eternal Darkness.
Eternal Darkness is great. I have good memories of the launch of it. Launch here was in November. Obviously, the anniversary they're talking about now is the Japanese release. I remember my girlfriend at the time worked at a GameStop, and I went to the midnight launch, and I had no pre-order. So I ended up asking her manager, who I knew, do you have any extras? And she's like, because I was, for some reason, at the time, I was very anti-pre-order. I refused to pre-order anything. I felt you should be able to just walk into a store and buy something. Yeah. And so I'm like, do they have any extra black ones? And she's like, yeah, I can get you black. So I got one. And then, so I'm standing in line, with my pre-order tag for that. I pre-ordered it an hour before we're going to get them, right? And I'm standing in line, and they did a raffle for a free game. And I've already ordered all the launch games I want and the system now, and I won the raffle. And everyone in line everyone's like, rigged, insider. His girlfriend works at the store. And so the game, the only other game I even had vague interest in was Super Monkey Ball. So I got Super Monkey Ball, and that copy of Super Monkey Ball is still sealed on my shelf.
That might be worth money.
Probably is. I've never opened it.
Wow.
So
Four Swords Adventures with the GBA and the GBA link cable.
Yeah, Pac-Man Versus, that was a good time. If you had
with
GBAs
the GBA
to play
link
with.
cable, yeah. They tried to do some cool stuff with
Wind Waker.
Yeah, they put out the Ethernet adapter eventually, but it only worked with 2 games.
The GBA player that actually made it a cube.
Yeah. It was interesting to see. Nintendo had big plans for that platform that just never materialized.
Phantasy Star with the Ethernet adapter. I played. That's what I got the Ethernet adapter for. Was Phantasy Star.
Isn't that how they ended up hacking something?
Yeah, there was some of that.
There was some kind of a hack that happened with the GameCube and the Ethernet
Chibi-Robo,
adapter.
it's good stuff. Cubivore, one of the most inexplicably valuable games in the system,
which is amazing. I have the Japanese version. It's called Animal Leader.
Yeah. Baten Kaitos.
That's right.
Those
Another
are cool.
obscure RPG. I bet you that's probably worth money now too.
Probably.
Chibi-Robo, as we're seeing right now, it's really insane that it failed so miserably.
Italian Wars, that stupid thing.
It only sold 20-some million.
Yeah,
that's insane. Nintendo sells that in a year now with Switch. Yep. 1 year.
Obviously, the audience is bigger now, but it was definitely not a giant success.
Oh, it was a failure.
It was
third-party games sold horribly on it.
Yeah.
And it was always lazy because, they had the discs, and so third-party publishers would have to compress their cinematics, and they always looked and sounded terrible. And Nintendo was so concerned about piracy that it ended up killing its platform.
It was a weird situation with
it wasn't worth it.
It was a very powerful system. It could have been great, but the size of the media was actually a limiting factor. How crazy is that?
It killed third-party support because the third-party games were always the worst.
It's like they finally moved away from the size limitations that the cartridges forced them into, And then they did the same thing to themselves by using the tiny discs.
Yeah,
it was
because
so
the problem
weird.
with the cartridges is the size.
Yeah.
Because if you wanted a big cartridge, it was expensive AF. And so they're like, okay, well, we'll go to discs.
And we'll just put a hard limit on what we can do. You know, so now you don't even have the option of being expensive. You're just stuck.
There's a couple games that came with multiple discs, but not many, because they didn't want to pay for the extra discs to be
like
manufactured. It was just so...
And you had the weird thing, because of the nature of the discs, you could only have 2 colors on the image on the disc.
Blue,
so it was
and like black.
No, it was any color. It was any 2 colors, but you could only have 2
at a time. The way they screened the top of them.
Yeah, so it was like usually you had black and red,
right,
or like something like that, or black and green.
It's funny.
And now apparently some of those have like started to peel off.
Yeah,
now. I haven't seen it on any of mine.
Well, they're starting to deteriorate. I saw a YouTube video where a guy bought a binder full of GameCube games, literally like 400 of them, all bad.
Wow.
None of them would read. Like, they started to deteriorate. Discs do that. Like, they start to, like, pull apart.
Disc rot. Yeah. Well, especially if you're stored in a binder like that, and if that binder was stored somewhere that was not conducive to storing a disc properly.
If there was moisture or anything.
It is always better to keep them in their cases.
Yep.
Sometimes it doesn't protect them fully, but, like, usually in situations I've seen with that, it's one disc. All your discs are not going to suffer from that. It's usually one disc, maybe with a crack in the case. The moisture got in somehow or whatever, depending on where you're storing them. I have not really run into any cases of disc rot in my collection, but I know it happens.
Yeah.
And it does seem to happen to the GameCube games. I know like there's a lot of concern over like Twin Snakes copies, like both having functioning discs, because sometimes that can be a problem.
Yep.
I don't know. The collecting game things gets into a weird area now that they're doing all the weird stuff with like the $2 million copies of stuff, and the Sonic the Hedgehog that sold for like $1 million or something.
Yeah, people in the chat are just like, I had a PS2. Everyone had a PS2.
Yeah,
it was the most dominant console I've ever seen.
Well, till the Wii.
Yeah, till the Wii. But I mean, even at the end, the Wii.
But the PS2 was a constant presence. The Wii was just like everyone had one, but nobody played much of it.
Played
the
one thing
on the PS2 was literally everybody's daily driver for years.
It was one that everybody used, and some people bought 2, 3 of them because they wore out like their original launch units.
Yeah, I do not have a PS2, a functioning PS2 at this point.
I still have my launch unit. It still works fine.
No, I went through 2 of them, at least 2 of them. I do still have a debug sitting around. But I haven't tried it in a long time. I don't know if it still works.
I bet it does. Those debugs were built different, and they ran like beasts. They never died. I have fond memories of the GameCube for a lot of reasons. When I started in the industry, it was one of the consoles that was out there. And so, learning to be a journalist in the industry, it was about GameCube, PS2, and Xbox. So there's a lot of nostalgia for me there. But I don't think there's any denying also that it was Nintendo's biggest failure as a console. Even, I think the N64... Did it sell more than GameCube?
I can't remember.
I don't know if it did, but it doesn't matter to me because the N64's games were so groundbreaking as far as 3D and things were concerned. Like some of the moments I had with my N64, I don't think I'll ever be able to replicate in gaming again. I thought VR might do it, but no. That first jump from 2D to 3D, I don't think it's ever going to be beat.
No, that's a hard thing to beat. Like that was that transition and the transition to the Dreamcast was like.
Yep.
Basically the transition to 3D and then the transition into 3D that you could tell what the hell you were looking at. Those were the 2 big moves.
It convinced me to launch a website.
Yeah.
Those 2 consoles. My website was N64 and Dreamcast because to me they were what was going to be coming. Is what with the future of gaming, and I was right. It absolutely was. That was what gaming was going to become, and I could see it from the beginning. And that set me off and launched Street Level Gaming, my first gaming website, and then from that I got my job at GameSpot, and the rest is history. So I definitely have a lot of fond memories of the GameCube.
Yeah, Pikmin.
I think it deserved better than it got.
Yeah,
but it's
I also have fond memories of being in the press conference for that thing. Yeah. I was there when they in the little basement in the hotel where they announced that whole thing.
But it's also Nintendo's fault. Like it did some things brilliant with this platform. It did some really stupid things like proprietary discs. Like what were they? 1.47 gigabytes
I think
or
that's
something
about
like
right,
that.
Yeah, it was like half the storage of a normal DVD or something like that.
And then once they had the dual density discs, then you could get even more on other discs or other systems than GameCube. It just killed it. And you're right. They didn't learn from the mistakes that they made with the N64. They tried to, and they just made the same mistake again. It's like, oh, we need discs. It's like, no, it's not about the disc or the cartridge. It's about space. That's what it was all about. Like, they never understood the root of the problem with the N64. And the N64 scared off third parties, and the GameCube did the same thing. And again, to me, the GameCube will always be remembered as the last Nintendo platform that had legitimate third-party support, even if the games never sold and even if the games were the worst of the 3 platforms, because they were.
Yeah.
Third-party games were always the worst on GameCube.
I think I only have one multi-platform game on GameCube still, and that is a retail review copy of Everything or Nothing. Which I just never got on anything else because it wasn't all that good.
Yeah.
And it was fine on that.
I have a lot of silvers, GameCube silvers, which are just the discs that they sent out for review that will play on retail units but have no screen on them at all. I literally have done, because again, I was the GameCube editor, so they just kept sending me just discs and discs. Half of them I don't think they've ever even been played, but I have tons and tons of them, literally reams of GameCube silvers. I have a few reader discs that worked in the GameCube reader. I have a pretty good GameCube collection, just in general, as far as like rarities and games and stuff like that. It's probably
I have the original press kit where they told us we were supposed to write it as Nintendo GameCube all in caps.
In all caps, yeah.
I have the backpack that's shaped like like the messenger bag, or whatever, that's shaped like the GameCube. There's like the top on it. I still have a Twin Snakes press kit that's apparently very rare.
I was gonna say that's probably
with
worth
the magnets.
Money. Yeah, that's probably worth some cash for sure.
But it was also fun. The GameCube was also fun because it was right when I was getting into I'd been at Tech TV for a little while, but it was like the first console launch, along with PlayStation and Xbox. It was the first console generation turnover that I'd been in the industry for.
All right.
So it was fun to see that all from that different perspective and be there when it happened and stand 10 feet from where Adam was interviewing Miyamoto live on television for his first English interview of all time and all that. There's some milestones there.
Yeah, I went to the last 2 Space Worlds before they stopped doing that. I saw the unveiling of Wind Waker in Japan. I saw the unveiling of that crazy Zelda in Japan that was just like Link fighting Ganon.
Yeah, the thing that everybody was waiting for
they thought the game was going to be. Yeah. And then the next year I go back and it's Wind Waker. Yeah. And so, I was there for the last 2 Space Worlds that Nintendo did in Japan. Definitely some historic stuff. So anyway, that's the GameCube. I realize some of you people watching this, you're like, what the hell's a GameCube? In fact, I think some people in chat are like, I never even owned one. I never knew one or knew anyone that had one, because the PS2 just dominated that generation, unlike, I think, any other platform before or since. So there you go. Congratulations to Nintendo on the 20th anniversary of its failure of a console. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a studio that has always been known for one thing, but now it's going to do something entirely different with a huge license.
No, it's not.
What?
It's just going to be more terrible writing. That's what they're known for.
You think?
Yeah.
What we're talking about is Quantic Dream. You may know them as the studio that developed Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, Indigo Prophecy,
yes, I had
Detroit Become Human.
I felt a great disturbance in the force, as if David Cage told Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams to hold his beer. I feel something terrible has happened.
Why? Why do you feel that way?
Because everything that David Cage has ever made is garbage, and this is going to be more garbage because the man cannot write his way out of a paper bag.
But Matt, maybe you missed the updates over the last couple days on it, though. It's not going to be a narrative-driven game. It's going to be an action-adventure that's built by their brand new studio in Montreal and not the base Quantic Dream team in Europe. Does that make you feel any better?
No.
I didn't think so.
In part because I don't feel like supporting anything that helps David Cage.
Okay.
Especially after the revelations of how they treated their employees over there.
Yeah, so that scandal kind of got swept under the rug.
Yeah, Blizzard was a little more visceral in that regard. No offense, Visceral Vision. Yeah.
It's funny how some people end up skating by.
Yeah.
And others get their feet held to the flames.
Like, and you can't forget, and there's a history there with Quantic Dream. Certainly, Cage's treatment of Elliot Page was not acceptable at the time with Beyond Two Souls and what they did there, which also led to lawsuits. It's not a company I feel good supporting, even if it's Star Wars, even if it's a new branch of it or whatever. It's a little disturbing, not disturbing, but it's a little disappointing to me that like Lucasfilm would want to do business with them.
Well, don't forget about the whole.
And again, your whole thing all the time is like, oh, this company's never made a game like this, and so I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that applies here too.
Oh
like,
yeah. Oh, believe me.
Certainly, the strong suit of Quantic Dream is not writing, but it's also not controls and gameplay.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have a strong suit other than graphics, basically.
I don't know. I would say choice-based games.
I mean, sure, they can make a story branching tree, but I don't care about that tree because all the leaves are dumb.
Well, you're right, because like Heavy Rain, there's a fatal flaw in the plot of that game.
Right.
That once you realize it, the whole thing seems ridiculous. Yeah. And I won't even share it because I don't want to ruin it for people who may not have played it. But there's a flaw in that story that just makes the whole thing absurd.
How old is that game now? 10 years old?
Is it?
It's got to be.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah.
It's got to be older than Dark Souls, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember when that game came out.
It is. It is older than Dark Souls for sure. I don't know. Some people, people in the chat are saying that they like Detroit. Like a lot of people are saying.
Well, nobody's perfect.
But remember, there was what we're seeing right now, this whole domestic violence controversy.
Right.
Because there was domestic violence in Detroit, and the way it's handled is very ham-fisted.
Oh, that's putting it kindly, really. Like I've seen after-school specials with more verve and subtlety. Yeah. And there's that element of it's like, don't you feel terrible what you did to that man? No, I do not. I do not find that to have been much of an ethical dilemma, sir.
I liked the concept behind Detroit. Like,
oh, sure. Like all three concepts of their major games, all four really, if you go back to Fahrenheit, they're all good ideas. They're just bad executions of them. Like it's weird. It's and like going through like the idea of like a game that deals with sort of the civil rights elements of intelligent sentient androids and parallels them to civil rights in the real world. Like there's a legitimate science fiction angle there. There's a legitimate theme there. David Cage and his team were just completely unable to execute on it. Like it's laughably bad.
Yeah, that's something I would look to Black Mirror to tackle. Not David Cage.
No.
Speaking of which, where the hell is Black Mirror? Where's the new episodes of that show?
I think they pushed that back, and there may not be more because
I haven't watched Netflix in months.
There was a point where I think the producers on that were like, we are in the middle of the pandemic. We feel like nothing we could do would be a darker reflection of reality than what is
actually happening.
So maybe later. I'm like, yeah. There was basically a sentiment of like, we don't feel like anyone needs more Black Mirror right now.
That might be a good idea, actually. Now that I think about it,
just look out your window and imagine that
it's a Netflix show. Yeah. But you're right, going back to what you're saying about me in general, is like this studio has no experience working on action games at all. They're adventure. That's what they do. Now, this, again, is their new studio in Montreal, but if you think David Cage isn't going to be looking over their shoulder while they make this game and supervising it, you're crazy.
Like, if this is going to be where the cinematic kind of action adventure game comes from, like, man, I got monkey's pawed on this thing. Like, this is just like, oh yeah, oh no, oh look what you did.
And what about the Star Wars angle? The fact that they'll be tackling a Star Wars game.
I don't know.
How does that make you feel? Like, dude, they cut Amy Hennig's game. Yeah. But they're going to let David Cage make one?
Give this dipshit.
I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, it is. I mean, some of it's par for the course in terms of like, I don't know what the thought process behind giving these guys this property would be. Like, I guess you were impressed by the visuals or something, or you read a summary of Detroit and thought that it sounded like a smart thing, but except it isn't when you actually play it. There's maybe David Cage is really good in a pitch meeting. I don't know.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is nope.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. It is absolutely a trap.
Yeah, I'm not excited for it. It's disappointing to me that Amy's game was canned and that this game may go forward.
I mean, there's definitely a different attitude now than there was then. There's a more willingness to experiment.
Well,
maybe
after EA dropped the ball.
After EA dropped the ball, and also after Rise of Skywalker dropped the ball. Yeah. Like, I mean, you're in a position where it's like the idea of protecting the brand on Star Wars is out the window. Like, Solo and Rise of Skywalker have already done the damage in terms of public perception. You've got a toxic fandom that is obsessed with tearing down the best Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi. Yeah, I said it. And and then on top of that,
how controversial these movies have been.
And on top of that, the things that have really redeemed the franchise, The Mandalorian and some of the Clone Wars stuff and Rebel, like it's all by this random animator guy, Dave Filoni, and Jon Favreau, who's more famous for Marvel stuff,
right? And
using that kind of Marvel angle of we're just going to let the creators and the directors and the writers tell the story and run with it and not worry about what overall strategy we have with the brand. That's where the best work has come out of in the Disney era for Star Wars. So maybe that's what they're angling on. I can definitely see if you don't know the details and ins and outs of how like Quantic Dream has behaved and what they've put out, and you don't have direct experience with their games, you could be tricked into thinking that they match that profile
because their games look good.
Yeah, they do look good, and they do present themselves as a creator-driven company.
Yeah,
even though they're not, they're driven by a hack.
Yeah,
and but again, like that, you might not necessarily know that if you don't have a lot of experience with their games. And let's face it, their games are not exactly barn burners on the sales charts. So there's a good chance that someone who's only casually familiar with games is not going to be able to have played that stuff. The question also becomes like what the subject of the game is. Like, what is this thing? Like, is he making a Jedi game? Is it a smuggler underworld game? Is it a Imperial? It could be anything. Like, we don't know. So we're gonna have to wait and see what this thing is first. Maybe some of the other people that are working on it. If David Cage is separated from this game by half a planet, maybe the Montreal people are more competent at what they're doing and won't be interfered with. But I have a hard time thinking that Cage is not going to basically, alpha dog this thing when it comes, at least when it comes to the story.
Yeah, me too.
Which is a very, very bad thing.
Makes me nervous.
Will it be worse than Rise of Skywalker?
Yes.
Maybe.
I think it will be.
At least at worst, I would think it would be a sideways move.
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker is a nonsensical babble of garbage. Like I can't. Like that movie is one of the dumbest things I have ever seen on screen. Rise of Skywalker is like not a single scene really connects to the next one. It is one of the most inept pieces of mainstream blockbuster filmmaking I can think of. I cannot contextualize it as a Star Wars film. The prequels are bad movies, but I have kind of recontextualized them as like, okay, even if I don't like Attack of the Clones, I kind of accept the overall events of the movie as the story of Star Wars. Like I can sum up for you the story of the prequels and kind of be like that Star Wars. Well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I cannot accept the events of Rise of Skywalker as Star Wars. Okay. That is just a bad J.J. Abrams movie that I'm not going to think about again.
Okay, we'll end there because we do have to move on. But.
So, Quantic Dream, luckily for them, the bar is under the ground, but I have faith that David Cage can find a shovel.
Right on. That's a great way to finish it. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a game that we also discussed on the last episode of GameFace before I went away for a short vacation. It's Tales of Arise. I have not played any more of it. Matt has. Matt, we were up against it for time. So maybe for this discussion, just focus on things that, like I did for WarioWare, things that where you've changed your mind or your perspective after playing the full finished game. If there is anything.
There isn't a whole lot, actually.
Really?
I was correct in that it onboards you much more easily into the combat system slowly. Okay. It is a slow burn. I am like 15 hours something in, and I only have 3 characters.
Whoa!
I'm about to get the 4th.
Wow!
It's very much in the standard JRPG vein of like go to place, solve problem, plot problem, gain new party member, go to next thing, solve new problem, gain new party member, fight boss. Like there's a structure to it that will not surprise anyone. There aren't a lot of surprises in general. I will say though, it is very pleasant. It is a very pleasant game to play. It actually pretty dark and play. Like they're dealing with slavery.
That's what I was going to ask because it's been marketed as like
they're dealing with some unpleasant, there's slavery and human rights stuff and da. But in general, it dodges most of the weird JRPG tropes. It tries some new things narratively that it's mostly successful at. Alphen is a little weird in that he's kind of aggressively, we're going to do the thing and free the people. But then they'll immediately turn around and be like this goofball about like, it's like, oh, that's really interesting that you use like this kind of technology. And it's just, and everyone's be like, What are you talking about? Okay, fine, sure. Like, there's a lot of contentious relationships between the party members.
So would you say the characters are inconsistent?
No, but he's just sort of weird because he doesn't remember anything beyond. He's a lot. When you find him, he has the mask completely over his face. He's just called Iron Mask. He doesn't remember anything more than a year ago. He's been a miner as a slave for like a year, and he doesn't remember anything about himself before that. So part of the plot and also part of the comedy, to some degree, with the relationships between the characters comes from the fact that he doesn't know what anything is.
Oh.
Like, his only world has been mining and and also he can't feel pain. He can be hurt, like he can die if he doesn't realize he's hurt bad enough, but he does not feel pain. So that's why he can use that flaming sword that he pulls out of Shion's chest, because it burns you when you use it, but he can't feel that.
Oh, gotcha.
So the implication, you don't see it every time, but the implication is when he uses the sword, he burns his hands and arms up, and after the battle, she heals his hands so he doesn't die.
Gotcha.
So that's sort of what's happening there. So that's why he's instead of being like a chosen one in the kind of the traditional sense, he's the chosen one because you need that sword to solve a lot of the problems and fight the lords they're trying to defeat that like run the planet. But he's the only one who can wield it because he's the only person that can hold the sword without screaming in agony. Which is kind of an interesting thing. And then like the sword is actually your backup thing. So like you have a normal sword that you fight with, and then kind of your charge moves and special moves and stuff use the flaming sword. It's called the Blazing Sword, which for a Voltron fan is funny. But like, so the Blazing Sword is kind of his big attack. You know, there's like tiers of attacks, like we saw in the demo, where like you got the normal stuff, and then you got the arts, which kind of do the special attacks, and then you've got like the extra things where you have to hold the button with his flaming sword, which is another tier of that, and then once you load the things up, you can do the boost attacks, which are the special attacks that are effective against certain types of enemies
insane.
or whatever.
The combat
and then you have the team up attacks when you do the strike meters full, and it's like just on and on and on. And so but it does definitely in the full game, it definitely onboards you more easily.
It builds up to it.
You definitely get a sense of like each section kind of like deals with a different ability, and like the enemies in that section are you'll have to use that new gameplay wrinkle to sort of get past them efficiently, so you learn how to use that. It builds on itself very well. It just takes a while. It takes a long time for the mask to come off. Like, as a matter of fact, I am still not at the point where he's wearing that outfit.
Really?
Like, he's still wearing like
You're 15 some hours.
He's had a couple of costume changes, but he's still not in his full regalia.
Wow. I mean, that's not surprising. That's the way Tales games are.
Yeah, I mean, it's big. There's a lot to it. So I've been playing a long time, and I was kind of like, I just want to get through the beginning and get everybody set up, and it was like, nope, I did not have enough time. I'm still playing it. It's still fun. Graphics are nice. Music is great. Voice acting is acceptable for the most part.
Acceptable.
I mean, it's funny in places just because, like, how he'll yell like earnest things about like we must free it, and no one else is acting like that. But they kind of play it for laughs a little bit, like sometimes. And it's also funny when like there's sections like this. I think this section where it's not fully voiced, so you just get kind of quick little like
I was gonna ask you about that. Is it like the demo where there's a lot of sections that aren't voiced?
Yeah, the non-essential stuff is not voiced, but you get like the characters sort of say things to establish the tone of what the text should be read as. But like the main guy, like the guy, like you're talking to, sometimes it's like, whoa. Yes, and it's just like that's weird. Like that doesn't.
What about the grunts? Our favorites.
That's not too much of that. Not that I noticed really. They talk too much in battle. They say the same things over and over again.
I noticed that in the demo.
But that doesn't change. It actually one of the biggest reliefs when you get new characters is they have new things to say to each other when they're running around. Like it's like, oh, thank God, Rinwell's here, and someone has something else to say.
Are you surprised at all by this game, or has it turned out to just really be another Tales game?
It's not just another Tales game. It's a reinvention, I think, in the ways they're saying it is. It may not be enough of one for some people if you don't already like action-driven kind of JRPG stuff. But I'm happy with it. Certainly more happy with it than any other Tales game I've played probably since Vesperia.
Okay.
And it is. I mean, I think on Steam they said it sold in its first weekend.
It's already sold 1 million.
It sold in its first weekend more than double the last two games combined.
Yeah.
So it's paying off for them.
It's doing well.
So it's doing well, especially for the franchise.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, and if this is what they're going to do with this going forward, like I'm on board. Like I like it.
Would you recommend people buy it?
Yeah, I think so. If you like the demo, this is just an easier to get into version of that, and you're definitely getting your money's worth. It's long.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just getting started and you're 15 hours
I definitely still feel like I'm in Act 1.
I mean, that might be a turnoff to some people.
Some people, sure, but I'm happy with it.
That's the way these games are. That's the way Tales is.
Yeah, and there's
you don't really get to the heart of the game until like the 24, 25 hour mark.
And it does get a little grindy apparently later on. Although like they have a lot of like stuff, like little like $4.99 like DLC things. There's stuff in those DLC things that like makes all your upgrades cost one item instead of like multiple of each. So instead of like 5 leather and 4 steel or whatever, something it would be 1 leather, 1 steel.
Oh geez.
Or like double XP.
That's pay to win, but at least it's a single player game.
Like, but those are there if you hit a point where you're like, I don't want to grind on it, because it does take a long time to level up.
So you
like,
can pay to.
So you can pay to just sort of speed
remove
that up.
the grind. Yeah. That's pretty slimy.
It's playable without it, but like,
how does chat feel about that? Paying so you don't have to grind in an RPG.
Nobody's really caused a stink about this one. I think because like the price, it's like $5 for like it's like a chest pack or whatever, and you get like a bunch of shit and it is stuff
slimy though. You have to admit.
I don't think it is.
No.
Like it's there if you want it. It doesn't really tell you about it in the game.
Yeah.
And the progression is fine so far, but I think as I understand it, I haven't gotten there yet. As I understand it, late in the game, you hit a point that's sort of similar to like the Grand Pulse section of Final Fantasy 13, where you're sort of kicked loose, and there's a lot of grindy stuff you can do, and you can sort of tackle the end game whenever you want, but you might want to build up more. And that seems to be what the cheat packs are for. There is if you want to like speed that part up. So far in the main game, I have not felt underpowered or that I needed to grind at all, unless I was looking for specific materials to upgrade something, because there are some pretty good upgrades even early on. You just have to find the stuff. It has not felt unfair in terms of the difficulty curve or the leveling curve. But I could definitely see if you hit a point where it's like, okay, now you got to, grind on this stuff and do like, kind of MMO style repeated stuff. I could see wanting a shortcut to that.
Let's see what chat says about that. Emperor Dread, I'm 25 hours in. I've had to grind for like an hour total. Okay, that's not bad.
I haven't noticed too much of it at that, but I've read that like somewhere around the 40 to 50 hour mark, it gets a little grindier.
GX Gear, grinding is part of the JRPG experience. That's true. But when you put a price tag on it, it detracts from the enjoyment of doing it. Yeah. Can you enjoy grinding?
It depends. I mean, I enjoy the combat in this. So, like, I think you can if you like playing the actual combat. And also it's different because this is an action kind of combo-based system as opposed to, like, if I was just doing a turn-based hit the button attack thing. Yeah, that kind of grinding is boring to me. But this is actually fun to play when I'm fighting.
Says, pay us so you don't have to play our game.
Yeah.
Cinetyke says, this pay to not grind feels very frustrating to me. Okay. Looks like there's different perspectives across the spectrum there, which is not surprising because we have a diverse audience. All right, so there you go. That's Tales of Arise. Matt says buy it. That's a full $60 game, right?
Yeah, and more if you want to get like there's like a deluxe edition with more costumes and stuff like that. But like, those are all cosmetic. They don't do anything for you unless you're really in love with. I think there's like sets of beachwear and like sets of like. It's like a Warring States packs thing where like it's just like they're all dressed like samurai. It's weird. None of it's particularly thematically appropriate. Like I think they, and there's a lot of like
Japanese
weird,
DLC.
That tends to be that, and the Tales games do that all the time anyway. Yeah. That's sort of a tradition almost. And like you do pick up cosmetic gear from finding owls in the game, and they give you like weird. So like my Alphen has actually had bunny ears on for most of the game, which makes a lot of the more dramatic scenes a little less dramatic. But but they let you do that. You can put like
maid costumes.
Yeah, there's probably in there.
Sure, there are.
But you can
Every
put like
Japanese game has a maid costume.
Schoolgirl outfits you can get from as DLC and stuff. But like the owl stuff gives you a lot of animal parts. So like you can have like dog. It makes turn them into furries. There's a lot of animal parts so far. So.
All right, so that's a buy from Mike Kyle. If you want to hear,
especially if you play the demo. I don't know if the demo's still up.
I doubt it. Usually they go down when the game goes on.
If you like the demo, you're going to like the main game.
Okay. And if you want to hear our impressions of the demo, episode 170, we talk about it for a good 30 minutes, I think.
I don't think it was 170.
What?
Episode 170?
Oh, 270.
Because that was 100 episodes
Yeah, that was a long time ago. 270. We talk about the combat in depth for a good while. So
did we? Was that the last episode?
270. No, this is 271. Yeah.
So the last time we did a show, we talked about the Tales of Arise demo?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't remember anything that happens anymore.
All right. It's time to move on to the last topic of GameFace 271. We're going to discuss Life is Strange True Colors. Matt, how much do you like the Life is Strange franchise in general?
I like it pretty well. I like the first one quite a bit. I like the second. I like Life is Strange 2 well enough. I didn't like Before the Storm very much.
I did not either.
I found that was stuff I didn't really need to know, and also Ashley Birch being replaced. I know it wasn't anyone's fault. It was the strike was the problem for that. Yeah. But like it really hurt. It really hurt the game for me.
It hurt the continuity, I thought.
Yeah. And I mean, I did like Life is Strange 2, but again, I think in the end, I feel like Don't Nod is the secret sauce to this, and they didn't make this, and I feel like.
Would you agree with me? The first one's still the best.
Yes. Okay. And I do feel like what was the game that Don't Nod just made?
Vampire?
With the like Life is Strange, but it was not Life is Strange. You know the.
Oh yeah, the Mr. Spirit or whatever it was.
No, not Captain Spirit. It was not. That was Life is Strange. I mean the one with the girl and her trans twin, who comes back to the town. It's called
Tell Me Why.
Tell Me Why.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. I thought that was more more in tone wise felt more like Life is Strange than the recent Life is Strange stuff.
Interesting. Okay.
I know part of the Life is Strange thing is like somebody having weird, a kid having weird powers, but like tonally it felt that Tell Me Why was more of a successor to what Life is Strange 1 did.
Okay. And we've both been playing True Colors. It is a completely standalone game. It has no ties to the other Life is Strange games other than, as you mentioned,
it is in the same universe.
Tween with supernatural powers.
Yeah, it is in the same universe for whatever they want to do.
How does that work?
It's just they're all set in the same world.
This game, and I did not see any.
Yeah, but they're all in the same universe.
Okay.
Like, not everything makes it to Colorado.
They're all set in a world where a tween can have supernatural powers.
Well, she's not a tween. She's 18.
Oh, that's right. She is 18 because that's how she ends up.
That's how old you are when you get kicked out of the
group boarding house, the group home, or whatever. But
foster care system has no more use for you. Go away.
Narratively, there's no connection with this.
No, she doesn't meet
games.
Max or any of that. Yeah,
right. And you play as Alex, young Asian American girl who has been through the foster system. For those of you who are on our Patreon or on Sifted, you may have already got some of my impressions on this game. I published an episode of The Grind a couple days ago.
Vincent notes there's a Before the Storm character in it.
It does?
Yeah. Someone from Before the Storm.
I did not pick up on that.
Neither have I, because I've only played the first chapter of this.
Okay. So. I have finished this game. And I'll just tell you right now, it's about 8 hours long. I would say.
That's who that. Okay, Steph. Steph is from Before the Storm. That's right.
Oh, she is?
The radio girl. Yeah.
Is she?
Yeah.
I don't remember her from that game at all.
Yeah, she was in there.
Interesting. Well, that's a major player. So yeah, then in that case, absolutely, there is a major crossover.
Yeah, I totally forgot that was who that, because she's at the very beginning of the game, and I was like, she seems familiar somehow, and the game lingers on her in a weird way.
Well, she's a big
character in the game, but like when you see her, it's like it did feel like the camera thought you should know who it's showing you. And I was like, what is that?
Isn't it funny how
I totally didn't pick up on
for a long time you have this like sixth sense to like understand when developers are trying to tell you stuff.
It's cinematic language, and it's like in I'm gonna go back to Star Wars again. It's like in Force Awakens when they blow the planet up and it focuses in on that one woman you've never seen before, and you're like, am I supposed to know who that is? Like, why is that? Because it feels like the camera's showing you her for a reason. And the reason is there's a cutscene where she's Leia's envoy, and there's a conversation she has with Leia about how she's representing her in the Republic government because Leia is wanted to be assassinated, so she's the one kind of being her proxy. And you're supposed to already know who that character is and realize that Leia's friend and envoy is about to be killed in that scene. But you can tell from how the camera works that it expects you to know something about this person, and that's definitely true of that first shot of Steph.
Okay.
But I did not pick up that she was from Before the Storm because I haven't played Before the Storm in years. So.
Okay. So anyway, this is a narrative and choice-driven game. You play as Alex. She is a young girl who's been through the foster system. Her and her brother were separated at a certain point because he went to juvie.
Yeah, they haven't seen each other for 8 years.
Yeah, and so she becomes of age to where she can do whatever the heck she wants, and her brother invites her out to move with him in a little town in BFG, Colorado, that basically is completely supported by a local mine.
Gorgeous town.
It is. The whole game
which
takes
is how
place...
you know some weird stuff's going on.
The whole game takes place on one street.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the game, they, like, jettison you out to these little locations. But literally 95% of this game takes place on one street. And it's just this little town in the middle of the mountains in Colorado. The whole town, everyone who works there either has a bar or a weed dispensary, or they work at the mine.
Yeah, all it's missing is Eric Cartman.
Yeah, you're right, actually. So she gets there. Her brother is awesome. They hadn't seen each other for forever. He's like, hey, you can have my place. I'm living with my fiance at this point. So she moves into the apartment above the bar where he is working.
The bar owner is my favorite character so
okay.
far. I really like him.
Stick with it.
Yeah. I'm sure he's got horrible, horrible things in there.
But anyway, they move to this mining town. There's an incident that happens. I don't know how far that first chapter takes you to. Did you make it to the incident?
If you mean the thing with...
I'm trying not to spoil.
Yeah, the anger thing, yes.
The anger thing.
With the guy who shows up to confront the brother.
Oh. No, I don't think you maybe made it to the big plot.
Oh, maybe
turn.
not.
There's a tragedy that happens.
Okay.
Have you not seen that?
Maybe not.
Okay. A tragedy happens, and
I saw an awkward thing happen, but a tragedy did not happen yet.
A tragedy happens, and the rest of the game is basically Alex becoming a detective and trying to figure out...
I think I know what it is, though.
Okay.
It's not a subtle game.
Okay. That's a good point, because it's not. And the rest of the game is Alex trying to solve the mystery. Why did this tragedy happen? Who's at fault for it? What are the machinations working underneath the hood that caused it to happen? And how can she bring the people responsible for it to justice? So it becomes like a detective mystery, kind of at the, 1/3 point. In the last 2/3 of the game, you're basically trying to solve the mystery, as it were. My big complaint with this game is that it really lacks any sort of interactivity. Now, it's an adventure game, and the prior games in the franchise were also adventure games, but they had more than this does. There aren't any puzzles to solve in this, really.
No, it was weird going through obviously I only played early stuff. I had to kind of put it down for some reasons.
Yeah.
But it was really slow.
It is slow.
The Life is Strange games have always been a little talky.
Yeah.
But the first game, you see a murder in a bathroom in the first 5 minutes,
right.
And this is it's just, I even feel like the pauses between lines are too long in places. It's weird.
And there's just not a lot of interactivity to it at all.
No, especially considering how much work they put into the environment and the town. It's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous.
By far better looking than anything else in the series so far.
Oh, yeah. It's not even close. But it also chugs.
Oh, yeah. When you first walk into that town, because I first walked in, I was like, oh, my God, I'm going to turn the ray tracing off and see if that helps. Does not help.
It doesn't help.
It is... I'm talking 10 frames a second in places.
Eventually, you end up... I think you've probably been to a scene on the rooftop already of the bar. Eventually, you go up there for for real time, and you can move around, and you can you can see the whole town, and it literally almost crumbles. The engine, it just can't. I don't know how you have built an engine that can't display a street without it crumbling.
I think isn't this Unreal?
It's just bad programming would be my guess, but the frame rates are bad. Again, it's not an action-based game, so it's just annoying more than anything. Obviously, it doesn't deter from the gameplay because there is no action or timing-based gameplay in the game at all. It really is just an interactive choose-your-own-adventure story. And again, that's kind of what the adventure genre is. However, a lot of adventure games...
It's Unreal 4.
What'd you say?
It's Unreal 4.
It's Unreal 4?
Yeah.
I can't fathom why it runs so horribly. I really can't. But it really is just a narrative and I'll say this too. It feels like there's more choice in the game, both in just general conversation decisions that you make, but also at those kind of focal point decisions where, it will actually alter the direction of the plot.
Clementine will remember that.
Yeah, exactly. There's more of that,
yeah.
I feel like, but there's just not a lot of action. So, and I know a lot of people don't play these games looking for that. They're looking for a great story and great writing and great characters that are developed. And one thing I will say, you're right, it is slow, but it does help develop the characters better, ultimately. I think it does. Now, she has a supernatural power. It's called empathy power. She can sense people's pain or frustration or anxiety. And not only that, she can go in and, mess with their minds and, find objects in the environment that will, jog their memory, things like that. but it is very straightforward. And I would also say, as someone who has finished the game and even kind of went back and like played it again, like from a certain save point, that the endings don't change all that much, and I don't feel like there's a lot of agency ultimately in what happens in the story.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's true of all of them.
Yeah, they put on a good front, but at the end of the story, there isn't that much difference in the decisions you make. The only thing that I could really tell is like who you end up with as your like significant other is the big change. But even the scenes for both of those characters at the end of the game are basically the same.
I mean, the biggest difference in any of the series was the end of Life is Strange 1, which was basically you could save a person and let the entire town die, or save the town and let the person die.
Big time decisions.
And like, basically like, and it was interesting in the sense that like the future games had to decide which one of those was canon.
Yeah.
And it feels like since that first
they've
game, they've decided to not have endings be so drastically different that they could not absorb one or the other as being canon in the future.
And that very well could be.
Not that this game seems to be rely on too much. You know, it's I guess because of Steph, it's dealing with Before the Storm stuff, but also it's the company that made Before the Storm, so that makes sense.
Yep. As Matt said, it does start slow. It gets going in the middle section, and a bunch of stuff happens that's really important and emotionally impactful. They do tackle some stuff that a lot of games don't tackle. There's an elderly woman who works in the flower shop in town, and she develops Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I saw that one coming.
Yeah, you probably could.
That first interaction with her, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and they handle it very, very well. There's you end up taking on the role of being her caregiver. You're not really, but in a sort of a moment you become her caregiver, trying to help her through her day. And I can't even imagine what it's like to have a loved one who really is fighting Alzheimer's. It's just so, that section of the game, I believe, is purposefully tedious. Meaning it's a chore to play, and it just makes you realize the people who have loved ones who are dealing with this in the real world. I have a whole new respect for people who are doing this, giving care to people with Alzheimer's or dementia. And so on certain levels like that, I feel like the game really succeeds. However, I also feel like the game kind of shows all its cards, and I had figured out what was going on way before the game reveals it. And that's where, to me, the game really started to drag. I was like, okay, I know what's going on here. There's one, like, slight element of the twist. Like, I didn't know who the person was going to be that was going to be involved in the twist, but I knew what the twist was going to be. And so I ultimately was left with very little surprise playing this game, which to me is an important element of these types of games. Like, I want to be shocked. I want to be surprised. I want to be put in these positions where I have hard decisions to make, where I sit there for 5 minutes wringing my hands and I can't come up with the right decision to make. I had none of that in this. None of it. All the decisions seem very fluffy, other than like intentionally guiding yourself towards whoever you wanted to hook up with, basically, whether you wanted her to be gay or straight. And there's even a part in the game where they ask you, is she gay or straight or both? Like while you're playing foosball, which is a weird timing.
You can realize a few things playing foosball.
Yes, exactly. So it's not even like you are subtly guiding her in this direction. Like ultimately, like they ask you, like, who do you want her to be? Who is she? And then you start seeing the rest of the story take shape based upon what decision you make in that moment. I enjoyed it, but honestly, the last third of the game just turned into a grind for me. The ending was not a surprise to me at all. Towards the end of the game, they finally send you back to learn her origin story and learn a little bit more about her. But it was like, I felt like that should have happened way earlier in the game. Like narratively, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like you go through all of this and then they send you, and it literally takes like an hour. Like they send you back to this section of the game where you learn of where she comes from and how, what happened with their family and how her brother came to go to juvie and all this stuff. I felt like that should have happened way earlier in the game instead of at the end when you're kind of waiting for the quote-unquote climactic conclusion to the plot.
And you got to wonder, like, I mean, I haven't gotten there, but, like, I always have the question about the late origin flashback. It's like, okay, why am I finding out about this now?
Right.
Was there a reason to keep me from knowing this until
There
now?
wasn't. There is not.
Like, that just seems to be sort of a Square thing.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder how much input Square had on the structure of that.
Is it a good adventure game? Yeah, it is. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad game. And I think most people will probably get wrapped up in it. I think most people who start it, I don't know if they'll finish it. I think they'll get pretty far into it. But again, I think most people are going to start to figure out what's going on with the primary plot in this and what the twist is going to be way before it ever happens. I know I did.
Yeah, which I admit was not really true of 2.
Right. I didn't think the first one either.
No, the first one wasn't
predictable.
predictable.
Completely caught off guard by that game over and over.
No, there was definitely some swerves in there.
Yeah, but
I would say that was what the weakness of Before the Storm was, that it was too easy to see where everything was going, and I chalked that up to the fact that it's a prequel.
Right, that doesn't help for sure.
But like the fact that the same dev had the same problem with this is a little disheartening.
Yeah, but it is a good adventure game, and I do think it. In a few months' time, when we're talking about Game of the Year stuff, I think it's going to come up for Best Adventure Game. It's not bad. It just drags, in all honesty, in a lot of ways. And I think a lot, will depend on how savvy you are with plot and plot structure and hints and foreshadowing and those kinds of, like, you picked up on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
In the amount of time that you've played.
Yeah. Like, look at the name of the floral shop.
Right. Yeah.
Like, not subtle.
Yeah.
Especially considering what's going to happen there.
Yeah. And look, and again, it's not very interactive.
I think that's actually literally that character's last name.
I think it is.
Letha.
Yeah.
Yeah. that's some Harry Potter name.
That is, shit, yeah. And actually, they do some stuff with the flower shop later on, where they show what it's like if you have Alzheimer's and you're inside the shop. So everything's like scrambled up, like, and things are spelled differently, and letters are transposed in words, and blah blah blah. Again, they handle that stuff really, really well. It's just very low on interactivity. Even the supernatural stuff in this is lame compared to prior games in the series. Literally, the empath stuff is you squeeze the left trigger, an aura appears around them, an icon pops above their head, and then you hit a button. And that's pretty much it. So it is really low on interactivity. I don't feel like the decisions I made had a huge impact on what ultimately happened with the game, but it does do a really good job of developing characters. I did care about the people in the town. I did care about Alex. I did care about her brother. And I think that's a big objective for adventure games, and so mission accomplished there. But I think the pedigree and the expectations are pretty high for this franchise, and I do feel like when compared to other games in the series, it does fall a little bit short. There you go. That's Life is Strange: True Colors. The other thing, too, Matt, I would bring up is this game is not discounted.
No.
So normally these games, they're indie games. You get them $10, $15, and you may eventually be able to get this for that.
This ain't no indie game. It's Square.
Right. And now Square is running it, and it's full price. And so there are things in this game, like there are T-poses. Like I've had characters snap into T-pose. I've had characters go to walk indoors, and like you'll just get these weird flash frames, like where it doesn't know whether they're inside or outside. Again, that's some of this stuff I saw in prior games. And you let that slide when you're paying $15.
Right.
When you're paying more, I'm a little less willing to forgive and forget. Another good thing about it, though, I will say, you get the whole game at once. So it's not like you're playing a chapter and then you're waiting like 2 months for the next chapter and you kind of half forget the decisions that you've made. You can plow straight through this. I did. It took me about 8 hours to get through the whole thing. It's pretty big for an adventure game.
Especially for one street.
And I would say, too, Matt, I do wonder if the game wore on me a little bit because I was going through it straight.
Yeah, I mean,
I do wonder if my perspective on it would be a little different and it may be worse, because it may be like they end on a dumb cliffhanger and they don't, resolve the cliffhanger like right away. Like, it's a different way to play the game from what you're used to, and it could have been to the game's detriment. It could have been to the good. There's no way to know, because you're just gonna either.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of it does feel significant that it's not called Life is Strange 3.
Yeah,
that it's
true.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
This team seems to just sort of do
the side stuff.
Yeah, side stories.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know. I do wonder if Don't Nod will come back and do a third one. It feels like Don't Nod has their own stuff to do now.
Seems like it's moved on at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a shame, because when they were in control of this franchise, it was next to, well, Walking Dead and this kind of neck and neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I understand if you don't want to work under Square's supervision.
I totally get it. So there you go. That's Life is Strange, True Colors. You can get it for pretty much everything. It's on. I think it's even on Stadia. And we didn't put it in the lower third because we ran out of room in the lower third. But this is also available for Stadia if you're one of the 80 subscribers of Stadia.
You'll need to do that. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, it's time for some fun.
Maybe it runs better on that.
It's time for some fun. It's time for Name That Game. If you guys don't watch the show a lot, or maybe you haven't watched for a while, it's a fun little game that we play at the end of every episode where I give you clues and you need to guess the name of the game. People love this, by the way, Matt. Mm-hmm. Like, we've been getting comments on both YouTube and on Sifted and on Patreon. Some people skip straight to this as soon as they watch the show.
They just want to see you frustrated.
They do. They probably do. I think I have a good one today, though. I think this one's going to go pretty well. I think we may make it to the third clue before people guess it. And I know for a fact Matt has not seen any of this because I kept it buried in my list of notes for today's episode. Here's how it works. So I give you a series of clues. Did we just level 1 hype train emote? Let me share that before we get going here. Get that emote out there. All right, here's how it works. I give you a series of clues, and you're just trying to come up with the game that I'm trying to hint at. Now, because Matt is here, and there's a slight delay with chat, if Matt names the name of the game, and I look over, and within a beat or two, somebody else has the name of the game in the chat, then the chat wins. So basically, chat wins all ties. And if you win, you get a set of 6 Sifted stickers that we sell on our store at sifted.net/store for like $8. And we will ship them anywhere in the world. We've already sent some to Portugal. We've sent 2 sets of stickers to different parts of the U.S. No matter where you live. You live in Antarctica, we will send these stickers to you. So everyone is in play no matter where you live. But you got to beat Matt Kyle. And Matt is really, really good at this. So you got to really be on your game. I mean, Matt is really good at this. So be ready. Last time, I couldn't believe that you got it, man. The last one was the most impressive.
Was it the darkness?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said this game believes in love. And he guessed the darkness from that. So that's how it works. Those are the type of clues you're going to get. And you have to try to figure out the name of the game. Maybe it's better if I bring up the chat on screen so people can see if anyone in chat guesses it. All right, so here we go. Name that game. And again, the chat wins all ties. Are you guys ready? Choo-choo hype. Everyone's in the house. Oh, someone's already called it Body Harvest. I need a buzzer sound effect, actually. So when people guess, I can give them the buzzer.
Yeah, got to bring back that game
That's
show
right, I forgot.
network thing.
Okay, here we go. I hope Matt does not get this on this first clue. I will be so pissed. Clue number 1. I provided a whole new perspective on survival horror. I provided a whole new perspective on survival horror. Anyone in chat got any guesses? Outlast, no. Silent Hill, no. RE7, that's a good one, but no. Five Nights at Freddy's, no. Condemned, no. Eternal Darkness, no. Alone in the Dark, no. All good guesses. Dead Space, no. Fatal Frame, no. RE Survivor, no.
Survivor's a good one.
That is a good one. You guys are doing a good job from that clue. You guys are coming up with a good one. Binding of Isaac, no. Someone already guessed Fatal Frame.
Yeah. Fatal Frame's a good one because of perspective. I thought of that.
Yeah, you guys are smart about it.
Nothing quite fits in my head right now.
Darkwood, no. Dead Space, no. Zombie U, no. Amasia, I'm not even familiar with that.
I think it's supposed to be Amnesia.
Oh, Amnesia. No. The Medium, no. That's a good one, too.
Yeah, because there's perspective in that. That's true.
All right. Okay. Clock Tower, no. Evil Within 2, no. All right. This is good. A lot of people guessing Fatal Frame and Outcast. Nope.
Yeah, my first thought was Silent Hill because it was the first 3D one, but it seemed too easy.
Nope. Resident Evil Dead Aim, no. That's the arcade shooter, I think.
Yeah.
The light gun shooter. All right. You guys didn't get it. We made it past clue number 1. Parasite Eve, no. Big Dave Lazard. Here comes clue number 2. Keanu Reeves admires my moves. Geist, no. Fear, they got it. Too Quick Capri got it. Good job.
Because of the Matrix stuff.
Good job. Too Quick. Hey, he lived up to his name. Too Quick Capri, you got it. It is Fear. Awesome job, and a round of applause for you. Congratulations, man. Great job. I didn't think anyone was going to get it. Manny says he got it before the second clue was given. That's awesome. Good job, Too Quick Capri. Awesome work, man. You beat Matt Kyle. That is no easy task.
I do somewhat agree with Zet Saber there.
What?
Fear being a survival horror game is sketchy.
New perspective, first-person perspective. It's a first-person survival horror game.
It's not a survival horror game. It's a shooter. It's an action game. But that's fine.
No. If you do any research on it, it's always called a survival horror game.
I've never heard it called that before.
The developers even say that they were attempting, but it was the first clue. You weren't supposed to get it from the first clue.
Right. But I'm still saying I would never think to call that a survival horror game. I would only mention it because I was running out of horror games to think of.
Look it up, though. Like, the developers say that they were trying to create a new kind of survival horror game. And here's the other clues that I had. And these are obviously, as it goes on, we try to make them more obvious so somebody will get it. Third clue is, if you're looking for something a little different from a shooter, give me a ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ring for the
Alma.
For Alma. Yeah.
And then
I guess the Wikipedia for survival horror first person shooter. I don't agree with that, but okay, if that's what they call it.
And then the fourth clue was my alma mater is a monolithic studio.
Right.
And Alma is the name of the character, and then Monolith is the studio. And then
the other Monolith.
Yeah. And then the final clue was I am the mind killer. Fear is the mind killer. That's from Dune, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So anyway, that was a good one. Awesome job, man. So, Too Quick. You can send us a DM here on Twitch, or you can hit me up on Twitter at Dinfire, or you can send me a DM on Sifted at Shane, or you can send us a message on Patreon, whatever.
Dave Lazard actually makes a good point. I'm a little surprised that there's been no Fear remaster collection or something.
Yeah.
It feels like something that people would want to go back to at this point.
They ended up making, 3 games?
There's at least 3. Yeah, there were 3 of them. And I think there was a spin-off, too. There's a spin-off where you played as one of the random, SWAT mooks.
Also, by the way, I should add that Fear is the reason that Marcus and I became friends.
Yeah, somebody actually mentioned that in the chat.
Yep. So Marcus was the head of PR on Fear, and I was working for Tech TV or XPlay at that point, I think.
Tech TV, I think.
I think I was, yeah. And so I went to play the game, and it was so weird. Marcus took us over to the Vivendi office over here at Howard Hughes right by the airport, and he literally put me in a closet to play this game. It was in a closet, an air-conditioned closet, so small. And I sat there and played the game. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
And Marcus lost his mind and told me I was insane and that I was the only person who hadn't given it a perfect score and that I didn't know what I was doing and that I was... he didn't call me a hack, but he hinted at you shouldn't have reviewed this game, stuff like that. And I was like, dude, whatever, okay. So anyway, we ended up becoming friends because we went back and forth through that whole process, and we became friends. And we
I think time has proven that to be an accurate score.
It has been, yeah. And even 4 out of 5 now back then it was 4 out of 5.
Back then it would have been, yeah. The visual impressiveness and sort of the inventiveness of the mechanics, now it would be pretty
the bullet
pedestrian.
time and all that.
Yeah, but now it would be pretty pedestrian. But at the time, it certainly implemented bullet time stuff better than any of the Matrix games had.
Absolutely. So anyway, because of that, we just became friends in the industry, and then ultimately, when I got the game trailers, he reached out to me. He's like, hey, I'm thinking about doing some journalism stuff, and I knew him so well at that point. I'm like, yeah, you're funny AF. I'd love to get you on the show, and I know you know what you're talking about. So that became him coming on Invisible Walls and Grumpy McGrump, which was what he was first called, and then Annoyed Gamer, and on and on and on. Also, an update, if you guys are wondering about Marcus. His treatment is working. I don't know how much detail I should share. I'll just stop there. His treatment's working, and he's encouraged by it. Encouraged is a relative term.
Mm-hmm. He's very in positive spirits about everything.
It's amazing, especially Marcus.
Yeah.
Because, his reputation is annoyed, grumpy. The way he's handling this, I can't even really put it into words. It's really amazing. But the treatment is working. So the stuff that he's doing, it's making a difference for him. And I'm not going to say how much of a difference. I'll leave that up for him to share with you guys. But if you guys are all kind of rooting along, keep doing it, because he needs the encouragement and everything. And obviously we all love Marcus, and we always will. I'm trying to get him in to do some stuff with us. Not sure what that'll be yet. He's doing his own thing, and support his streams and all the stuff he's doing on Twitch and on YouTube. I think he does a show every Friday or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, like jump in there and like talk to him. Like he needs like positive reinforcement and people that love him to like interact with him and all that stuff. So support him. Follow him on Twitter @AnnoyedGamer. And he before he goes live, he tweets all that stuff. He just needs support from people who care about him right now. And that's what we can do. And it's free of charge. All we got to do is just show up and hang out with him, and that makes a difference for him. So do that if you can, if you got the time. Again, I think that's every Friday that he does a show. So just make sure you follow him on Twitter @AnnoyedGamer. I know it'll mean a lot to him, and I will appreciate it. So from my heart, like, help him out. He needs it. And, you know, we all hope that if we're ever in the position that he's in, we'll have people. So pass it forward. Pay it forward. Let's see. I think that's it for the show. It was a good one. I had a good time today. It's been good getting back, in all honesty, and hanging out with you guys and interacting with chat. You guys hung tough all the way to the end. Saw a bunch of new people in chat today that I have not ever seen in our chat, which is awesome. If you are just a lurker, get involved. It actually lets us know when you guys chat like for the first time, and we can recognize you guys and welcome you guys to the GameFace crew. We are supported 100% by Patreon. In fact, I'll run the Patreon banner right now for those watching on YouTube. Go to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD without the E. And you can pledge as much or as little as you want. And depending on what you pledge, you get various rewards. You guys know how Patreon works. I think our Patreon set up pretty well as far as rewards for the tiers. If you want to get your name in GameFace, it's like $30 a month. And you'll be part of the scroll that runs along the bottom of the screen. Even if you just want to kick us $1 or whatever, it all adds up. It all makes a difference. And in fact, I think our Patreon right now is at its lowest ever, or close to its lowest ever. I took a week off and we lost a ton of money. It's very discouraging, but I appreciate all the people who give us anything. And I'd rather focus on the people who are helping and being a solution to the problem instead of the people who are not. So I appreciate all you guys who support us in any way, shape, or form. Even if you're just sharing GameFace on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. If you like the show, share it. That's how we're going to grow. That's how we're going to generate more revenue. That's how we're going to make more content. That's how we're going to do 2 episodes of GameFace a week instead of 1. So our show isn't 3 hours and 9 minutes. And we're not talking about something that's 8 days old, because we'll have 2 shows during the week. So that's our big goal. We want to do more than 1 episode of GameFace, and we want to do more shows in general, more content, more value for our patrons. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm @Dinfire. As I said earlier in the show, follow Matt @MKyle. That's MKEIL. He's got big projects going on, and we want to all rally around him and help support his projects with his films that he's working on. That's what it's all about, building a community that can help buoy everything that everyone is doing. I think that's it, though. We'll be back next week. Don't be afraid. We're not going to go away. I know we were gone for like a couple weeks. You may be like, oh, no. Like, we'll be back next Tuesday. We're here every Tuesday at twitch.tv/siftedgames at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And we'll be back here next week, and we'll be talking Kena, and I think there's a couple other big games coming out. The show is going to rock for the rest of the year, I think. If you look down the barrel of the release calendar, there's tons of stuff coming out. Show should be great from here on out, and I'm very happy and honored, in all honesty, to have you guys along with us. So on behalf of Matt, I'm Shane Satterfield. We'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.